To shoot a man while he was sleeping, he didn't even have a chance to defend himself.
An execution-style slaying.
So if it's not a random act of violence, then you gotta find somebody who wants to do them in.
A real-life game of Clue.
They all knew that night in that garage, every single one of them, that he was already dead in the house.
The truth will be revealed.
It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
I had to be the person to get some justice for him.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Newbury Township, Ohio. A small community with a big heart.
Newbury is close-knit. Everybody knows each other. People do things together. They have four-wheelers and dirt bikes in the summertime, and in the wintertime, everybody pulls out their ski-doos.
You've got neighbors that are spread out, you know? It's nice. It's safe. People leave their doors open. People know one another, and they trust one another.
911, what city?
Newbury, Ohio.
Okay, what is the problem, sir?
I think somebody's having a heart attack or something.
Is he breathing? Help.
He's unconscious. He's not responding.
We had a 911 call come into our sheriff's office placed by an individual by the name of Tig.
Tig has found his 53-year-old stepfather, Randy Sheffield, unconscious in his bed.
Do you want to try CPR?
He's really cold and he's really stiff.
Listen, sir, do you want to try? I'll walk you through it.
He's kind of got a firm grip on the edge of the bed. Okay, he's not with us.
Randy is the owner of a landscaping company in town. He's known as the Snowplow King among friends, and he's always enjoyed being a big fish in a small pond.
He had a lot of clients. He cared about his employees, he cared about his customers, and people respected him, and you know, he never really had any ill will towards anybody.
He just was a generous, kind, good guy. Everybody I spoke with just said, you ask him for it, he'll give you the shirt off of his back.
Minutes after the call comes in, first responders arrive at the Sheffield home.
We had the Deputy Heather Billisek respond to the scene. And she had worked on an ambulance squad, so she had quite a bit of medical background in her history. And she looked at the scene with very different eyes than an average deputy. She noted that there was blood on the bed and was coming out of what she believed was the back of the head. And she immediately recognized this as something is wrong. Upon looking at the room to see what caused the injury, she noted a gun box. She picked it up to see if there was a gun in it, and the gun box was empty. Now her mind started racing. Could this have something to do with the wound in the back of the head?
Suspecting foul play, Deputy Billisek calls in veteran homicide detectives, Juanita Vetter and Mitch Kelly.
Detective Vetter and I have worked quite a few death investigations. We've had some pretty gruesome ones, some worse than others. So in this particular case, would I call this one strange? I don't know what strange is anymore. People do weird things to each other. People are not nice to each other.
To find out who would want Randy dead, detectives must piece together the final 24 hours of his life, starting with the crime scene.
I felt that I was behind the 8 ball immediately when I walked into the room of the Sheffield residence. What was very bizarre about the scene is that the wallet was on the floor and the credit cards were spewed out. The drawers are pulled out, but nothing is missing. To me, it almost looks like somebody's trying to stage a burglary.
Things get even more unusual when they walk into the living room.
There's 6 people sitting in the living room at 1 o'clock in the morning, and there's a dead man not even 20 feet down the hall. So now I've got the task of who are all these people? I don't even have people's names.
When you have a pool of suspects this large, the process has to focus on what's called excluding suspects. So you don't just arbitrarily decide who's more likely to have done it than somebody else. You will actually systematically and categorically move through all of the people because everyone is a suspect.
As Vetter works her way around the room, she starts putting the puzzle together. Doretta is Randy's second wife. They've been together for more than 20 years. She's also the company bookkeeper. Tig is Doretta's son by a previous marriage, who Randy loved and raised as his own.
Tiggy was a self-taught mechanic. He was really good. He'd rip those machines apart and put them right back together.
Gina is Tig's girlfriend. They have a baby son together and live down the road from the Sheffields.
She's a hairdresser. She was definitely goth looking, pitch black hair, tattoos covering her entire torso.
Lastly, there's Randy's snowplow drivers, Trevor, Kurt, and Jason. They were working in the garage when Randy's body was discovered.
I'm concerned that my evidence is being destroyed by all these people being in the house. So after we get everybody out of there, I wanted to do an interview with the wife.
Hey, Doretta. I know that it's late. I'm just very thankful that you took the time to come to the sheriff's office and talk to me. Your husband is, he's passed, and our job is to try to figure out what happened. But what do you think happened?
I didn't know. I don't know. He's diabetic. I thought he was sleeping. I just shook him and he wouldn't wake up. He just kept laying there like this, on his side, like he sleeps. I don't know what happened to him. I have no idea what happened.
As I'm interviewing Doretta, we have not told her that we found a bullet in the back of her husband's head yet. I'm simply asking her about her husband's death and the relationship that she has with her husband. But then when I did finally tell her, Doretta, I have something to tell you.
What is it? Your husband has a gunshot wound to the back.
No.
She became excessively, uncontrollably crying and hysterical.
I need you to be strong.
And I couldn't even ask another question. I got so frustrated that I physically left the room because there was no dealing with her.
Doretta says that Randy was everything to her, having rescued her from a desperate situation 2 decades earlier.
Randy was in his 20s and he had gotten divorced. He would go to the Greenville Inn, and Doretta was divorced as well. So that is where he met her.
She didn't have a lot of money prior to meeting Randy. She was raising 3 kids on her own. She was living in a bad part of the county, kind of like Section 8 housing.
She was trying to keep a roof over their head, and Randy had an apartment. After they got married, Randy really did raise the kids. And Doretta started working in the landscaping business.
He's a very basic guy. And Doretta was like the mother hen. She would always make the sandwiches. She was always doing the cooking. Randy was the breadwinner, and she would cater to all of Randy's needs.
This is what I need you to really think about. This morning, Okay.
And he said he was going to McDonald's. What did I want? And I said, what do I always get? Egg McMuffin.
Doretta says that Randy woke up at 6:30 a.m., excited because the forecast was calling for snow.
That's the first time it snowed significantly at all that whole year. So Randy was going crazy because he's gonna be wanting to get his guys out.
Just after 7 a.m., Randy heads to McDonald's to fuel up for the big day ahead.
He's going through the drive-thru. Hash browns was one of the things he purchased. He also bought some sandwiches. He ate those on his way back to his house.
All right. Now, he comes home, he's got his Egg McMuffin.
And he said, I'm boring. You want to go back to bed and fool around? And I said, all right. We got up, we went back in the bedroom, we made love.
Then Doretta says he's not feeling well. So Randy lays down to take a nap.
Doretta says the last time she spoke to Randy was just before she left the house at 9:30 a.m. That means Randy could have been killed any time between then and 9:30 that night.
Randy's death did not immediately happen prior to him being discovered. It had to have happened much, much earlier in the day.
Doretta spent the whole day running errands around town, not arriving back home until later in the afternoon at 4:30.
She said that she went, put the groceries away, went to check on Randy, peeked in the bedroom, saw he was sleeping, decided to leave him sleep, and then went outside to see the boys in the garage.
By the time Jason arrives for work at 9 p.m., Doretta, Tig, Gina, Trevor, and Kurt have gathered in the garage.
The roads were so horrendously snow-covered. If you own a snowplow business, you should be out snowplowing, if not anything else, getting your trucks ready to go snowplowing.
Jason was concerned because, hey, we're getting ready to go snowplowing, nobody's called. Where's Randy?
That's when Doretta decides to check on Randy and discovers him lifeless in his bed.
So the biggest issue is, how does someone get shot in their home? People are in a garage, but no one heard anything and no one saw anything.
Since Doretta was the person who found Randy, Detective Vedder is charged with asking her a tough question.
Did you have anything to do with what caused your husband's death?
No, God, no. No, I love my husband. No.
That's the question I have to ask.
To me, and everybody reacts differently, but to me it was just like she was playing to the camera. This, oh Randy, my Randy, oh Randy, just this sobbing and rocking back and forth.
No, Randy. Oh my God, Randy. No.
It definitely smells. It smells really bad.
After discovering the Snowplow King, Randy Sheffield, shot dead in his bed 2 days after Christmas, the pressure is on detectives Vedder and Kelly to find his killer.
The hardest homicides are the whodunit homicides. It's like putting a puzzle together, and you have a limited amount of time to get as much as you can before people change their minds, start talking to each other, start getting their stories right.
Right now, everyone's a suspect, including Randy's wife Doretta, his stepson Tig, and Tig's girlfriend Gina, all of whom were at the house when his body was found.
The one thing I always keep in the back of my head when I'm doing my investigation is I'm always trying to find who is it that has opportunity and the motive.
To find that out, detectives need to narrow down Randy's time of death.
Establishing time of death tells you exactly when the offender and the victim were in contact. That needs to be as precise as possible in order for it to be confirmed beyond a reasonable doubt in a court that a certain perpetrator and a certain victim were in the same place at the same time. If those don't line up, if the timeline is off, you have reasonable doubt, plain and simple.
Detectives are still waiting for the official autopsy report. So for now, they're basing Randy's time of death on the amount of rigor mortis, or stiffness, to his body when he was found.
Rigor mortis does not set in for, 5, 6, 7 hours. So I'm working on what Deputy Heather Bilsek has told me. She tried to roll him over and she said he had a death grip on that post, which was really strong rigor mortis. So I'm thinking, shoot, if you're there at 9:30, I'm thinking noon to 3 is what I'm thinking for time of death.
Their first suspect is Randy's wife, Doretta. Detectives need to know where she was when Randy was murdered. She claims she was running errands around town from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Detective Kelly sets out to verify her alibi.
You can't go more than a quarter mile anywhere without being caught on video.
And what we ended up doing is we ended up making a timeline off of Doretta's initial statement. The timeline consisted of videos and the cell phones.
She said, I left the house at around 9:30 in the morning. We're able to verify that with video footage that we obtained from gas stations.
She said she went to the bank. She did a bid for the Snowplow. She went to Walmart and did some grocery shopping.
We got video of her walking into the store. We got video of her in the store. And then we got video of her coming out. During that time, she also makes a phone call to Randy talking about what she's gonna buy, what she wants to make for dinner.
She went to Gina Battaglia's, stayed there, and then eventually made her way home. And that's exactly what she did.
Detectives believe that Randy died between 12 and 3 p.m. So with Doretta out of the house for most of the day, they conclude that she couldn't have killed Randy. Detectives now turn their attention to Tig, Randy's stepson. He was the one who called 911, and there's something about that recording that doesn't sit well with Detective Vetter.
My dispatchers are trained in emergency response, so they were giving them step-by-step instructions on how to do CPR. Tig, for some reason, said that he couldn't do it because his hands were greasy, because he was working on motorcycles all day, which, when I listened to that phone call, was an immediate red flag.
Do you want to try CPR?
I'm covered in grease. I was out working.
Listen, someone needs to try. Who's free of grease and can do it?
Greasy hands is not a legitimate reason to not do CPR on a loved one, especially when it's your father, stepfather, someone so close in the family.
Police need to know more about Tig's relationship with his stepfather. They turn to Randy's sister, Melody.
Him and Tiggy were very close when Tiggy was little. Randy raised Tiggy as if he was his own son. He always rode motocross. He had a beautiful, beautiful BMW street bike. And they would go up into upstate New York and go through the countryside. So they did all that stuff together.
Randy also taught him how to fix the machines they raced on. By the time he grew up, Tig was a skilled mechanic, and it was only natural that he started working for his stepfather in the shop.
It was always believed that Tig was the next in line to take over Randy's company. And he told people that this business is gonna be mine, I'm gonna be in charge.
But as investigators dig deeper, they learned there was tension between stepfather and son.
Tig wanted to go in the direction of getting in the construction part of landscaping, building patios and everything like that. Randy didn't want to do it because it would cost more money for insurance. He was making a good living off of how he started the company. There's a good possibility that Tig may now be on the outs, and that company that he thought was going to be his is not going to be his now.
Having found a possible motive, investigators questioned Tig about his whereabouts on the day Randy was murdered.
Tig leaves his house about 11:30 in the morning because he's going to go get breakfast with a friend of his. And so Trevor picks him up, and they go to breakfast. They then decide to go to the shop. But on the way to the shop, they have to get snacks and drinks, so they stop at the gas station. That was right at 1 o'clock, and Randy Sheffield's house is not even 30 seconds from the gas station. So it was like 5 after 1. He gets to the garage.
So they're hanging out in the garage for most of the day. Then throughout the day, different friends are popping in and popping out.
Tig claims he didn't enter the house until later that night, when Doretta found Randy's body. Investigators turned to Tig's friend Trevor to confirm Tig's story.
We talked to Trevor, separate of Tig being there, and asked him, did you go in the house? Did Tig go in the house? So he said yes. Tig Rouse had gone into the house around 3 o'clock in the afternoon to use the bathroom.
That means he clearly had the opportunity to kill Randy.
This is where the rubber really hits the road. This is where the timeline is key, because you're talking about not hours, but minutes, where a person's whereabouts may be unknown and where they may have cross-pollinated with the victim.
When investigators confront Tig, he vehemently denies having anything to do with the murder. Instead, he tells them he thinks he knows who may have done it.
The story is that there was 2 former employees. They're drug addicts, they're thieves, they're crooks. These 2 guys had it in for Randy.
Tig says right before Christmas, Randy fired 2 transient workers from Cleveland for using drugs, and they swore revenge on him before leaving town.
Randy ran a good, clean business. He really did, and so he kept people on the books. But there was no record of these people existing at all.
So we went back to other snowplow drivers and asked them, did Randy have anybody in the landscape snowplow business that were let go before Christmas? No. Across the board.
Police conclude that the ex-employees never existed.
Why is Tig misdirecting? Trying to redirect towards these nefarious people from Cleveland who were mad about being fired.
We realized that Tig was making this story up, and it makes Tig look very bad.
The investigation into Snowplow King Randy Sheffield's murder is narrowing in on his stepson Tig after detectives discover he was alone in the house the afternoon Randy was killed.
We went to talk to Tig, and we got a call from Tig's attorney, and we're no longer allowed to talk to either of them. So any follow-up interviews and all questions involved, we weren't allowed to go there.
With Tig freezing them out, detectives turned to Randy's longtime friend Jason for insight into Tig's demeanor that night in the garage.
I've known you my whole life. I know something was wrong the minute I got there that night. What are you saying? I don't know. I mean, honestly, I know in my heart to heart that Tig knows exactly what happened. I know that.
You know he knows what happened.
I know he does. Tig was very focused mechanic. When he was working on one engine, he didn't stop to mess with anything else. And that night, he was just disheveled. I've seen it in his eyes since that day. He's a changed person.
Really?
Yeah. And I truly believe that Tig isn't the one that killed him. But at the same time, I believe he knows the answer. But we can end this for everyone.
That's as far as Jason will go in pointing the finger at anyone. But he tells detectives to look at Gina, Tig's girlfriend and the mother of his child. He says Tig's life started going south the moment he hooked up with her.
Gina is insane. And she's just crazy. She was always in trouble. She was on drugs and she, just partying.
Investigators learn that Gina continued her wild lifestyle even after she moved in with Tig.
At one time, Tig Tig and Gina lived in the basement of Randy's house. Randy is a quiet kind of guy. He's a little bit older. He said to Tig, I have raised you to be a good man, and it's time for you to live on your own, and you need a place of your own.
I guess Randy just said he could not stand the constant fighting and screaming that was going on in the basement between her and Tig.
The family says that while Tig accepted Randy's decision, Gina did not.
This is a very entitled, spoiled girl who just can't believe she's not getting her way. She's angry at Randy because she deserved to be there. Tig deserved to be there.
But what detectives find out next takes their suspicions of Gina to the next level.
During the course of the investigation, talking to people, we ran into an individual who was best friends with Gina. She had told us about a time that her and Gina were walking with the kids. Gina said, Randy just sits in the truck all day, and Tig is the one who makes all the money. He's the one who works. He's the backbone, and all Randy does is sit there and put his hand out. And then she continued on by saying that we've got to figure out a way to off Randy. We would be so much better without him.
With Gina now in the investigators' crosshairs, she's brought into the station for questioning about her whereabouts the day Randy was murdered.
Gina said she never left the house. She said she got up, she took care of her son, and then when Kurt came over, they got in the car, they went to a friend of theirs, and then made their way with pizza up to the garage.
But when detectives pull her cell phone records, they reveal a different story.
Some of the calls that she received that morning were bouncing off of a tower near the Sheffield residence. And the only way that that would happen is if she left her home and she went to the residence.
That puts Gina near Randy's house in the time frame they believed he was killed.
We sat down to talk to Gina for a little bit, and it just exploded. We kept asking her about her cell phone moving.
She got very nervous. She got very antsy in her seat. I think if it wasn't cool in there, she would have started sweating.
And every time I would ask her, she came up with, oh, I must have been at so-and-so's house. I forgot, I checked that with the, no, that would be a totally different cell phone tower. I'd hit her back with that. Gina, that doesn't make sense. Just tell me, where did you go? She gave me 5 different answers about where she went during that day. Now there's nothing she can say to make it right.
In an effort to clear her name, Gina agrees to take a new form of lie detector test called a computerized voice stress analysis.
CVSA is a new technique that looks at patterns in your voice and stress of the voice to determine whether or not you're telling the truth about a crime. Oftentimes, some of these techniques are not used in court, but they're still an investigative tool to determine if somebody's telling the truth or possibly engaging in deception.
It's done with a computer, you can't fake it. She failed it miserably. I informed her, hey, listen, this is gonna go south. This is not looking good for you.
We had put a lot of pressure on Gina, and we honestly felt that she was gonna crack.
But surprisingly, Gina holds firm to her story. And with nothing but circumstantial evidence against her, detectives are forced to release her. After weeks of sleepless nights, investigators are no closer to finding Randy's killer than they were on day 1.
I'm very good at compartmentalizing things. I keep work, home, home. You know, in this case, I couldn't compartmentalize it. I thought about it 24/7. And to shoot a man while he was sleeping is, I'm disgusted by it. He didn't even have a chance to defend himself. And I did feel that I had to be his voice. I had to be the person to get some justice for him.
Unwilling to accept defeat, Detectives start canvassing the neighborhood, looking for any new leads.
So we got to hit the ground, and you got to start knocking on doors. You got to talk to people, what they see, when did they see it, who is wearing what vehicles were parked where, the minute details, the stupid little things. Those are the things that we're looking for.
Finally, their tenacity pays off.
One of the neighbors came forward and said, yeah, I remember in the morning I was in my kitchen window and I saw a guy in a red flannel shirt walking down the road going towards the Sheffield house.
He's wearing a red flannel, he's got a hoodie on, and he comes right past their house. He's traveling southbound.
We ended up going to the gas station, which is 200 yards from the Sheffield house.
And their surveillance video show him walking right into the gas station. Plain as day, you can see his face, you can see what he buys, looks up at the camera. This could be a gold mine if we could identify this individual.
Detectives are following up on a tip about a suspicious man in a red shirt seen lurking in the neighborhood on the day Randy was murdered.
We wanted to talk to him. Is he a person of interest or not? So our little neighborhood canvas turned into a door-to-door canvas of a 1-mile radius around the house. We toyed with the theory, could this be a murder for hire? That maybe the family had hired Red Shirt Man to commit this? No.
So professional killers are generally hired in a spousal situation by women to distance themselves from the act. They won't necessarily feel comfortable committing murder themselves, but they will try to reach out to somebody to essentially assist them.
We were looking for Red Shirt Man up and down.
We went as far as to pull who got out of the jail that morning. Were they on foot? Did they get picked up?
But their efforts are in vain. The Red Shirt Man has vanished without a trace. But just as they've reached their wits' end, they get a call from the pathologist. She's found some undigested food in Randy's stomach.
So I get a hold of the medical examiner's office, and they're like, well, we don't know exactly what it is, but it looks like it's pretty much a half of a meal. It's only partially digested. It's pretty fresh. And they're able to do tests on it that we ask for, the trace evidence man. He's able to determine that they are hash browns. We are going, it's the McDonald's food from that morning. It's got to be. So we go back to the video. And Randy's in the drive-thru at McDonald's at 7:05 in the morning. So from Doretta's own statement, we know that Randy ate his as soon as he got it. The pathologist tells us, okay, with that, I can tell you that he died anywhere from 7:30 to 9:30 in the morning, no later than that. With that, we're like, this is a game changer.
Until now, detectives had eliminated Doretta from the suspect pool because she had an alibi for the time in which they believed Randy died. But with this new information, they now know that Randy actually died between 7:30 and 9:30 a.m., making Doretta their prime suspect.
Doretta is seen on video leaving her residence in Randy's truck at 9:30 in the morning by herself. Nobody else was in that house. It leaves the question, it's like she was the only one there, so who else could possibly have shot Randy?
Detective Vetter starts digging into the company's public records, looking for answers.
Doretta is the bookkeeper of the company, so I pull up Randy Sheffield and our clerk of courts, and I see all these financial liens on Randy Sheffield from the state of Ohio. Randy had not been paying his state sales tax since 2005, and it was quickly escalating to over $100,000. So with that in mind, I started asking Randy's mom, who used to be the bookkeeper of the company. I said, were you aware of this? And she was like, I got a letter in the mail, and I opened it, and I saw that he had a tax lien. Randy's mom asked Doretta about it, and she said she knew all about it, but please, I've got it handled. So I'm gonna make good on all those taxes, so we'll be back to square one. Please don't tell Randy, because he would be really upset with me.
Owing back taxes to the IRS is not an enviable position to be in, particularly as a corporation. The stakes are very, very high. People have gone to jail for less.
So we know that the company is hurting financially. Does Randy know it? Probably not. Does Doretta know it? Absolutely. Does Tig know it?
There's only one person who can help them answer that question, Randy's friend Jason. Detectives ask him down to the station for a second interview and explain what they've just discovered. This time, he doesn't hold back.
What do you think actually happened?
You want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
I think that she was completely unhappy in her marriage. I think that she had extended out too much help to her friends to the point where it started to sacrifice the business. I think she panicked before it all came to light. I think he went to McDonald's in the morning, coming back smelling like Egg McMuffins and wanted to have sex, and she just snapped.
Who do you think shot him?
I can tell you this, I feel that they're all guilty. They all knew that night in that garage, every single one of them, that he was already dead in the house. They know, and if they know about it, it's conspiracy to commit murder, right?
Yes.
Detectives now believe Randy Sheffield's family conspired to kill him. To find out who was involved, they start tracking the money.
Where's the tax money gone? What happened? Where's that cash?
So we started realizing that Tig is getting money outside of his paychecks from Doretta. Gina is getting money from Doretta. She's funneling money unbeknownst to Randy, to the entire family.
Detectives are working a theory that Randy found out about the embezzlement just before Christmas.
Just prior to Randy's death, Randy does go back to his mom and asks his mom if she would take over the books for him. So at that point, we do believe now that Randy's catching wind.
Investigators suspect that Doretta, Tig, and Gina knew they were about to be exposed.
They made the decision that it's time to take out Randy. He's not taking this away from us.
Now it was a game of chess. Because we know that they're slowly unraveling.
Investigators now believe they have enough to piece together the final 24 hours of Randy Sheffield's life.
I think in Randy's head, he wanted out of this marriage. He wanted Doretta away from his business. I think Tig knew it, Gina knew it, and Doretta knew it. I think they all knew it. December 27th was significant in that Randy absolutely loved dirt bike racing. And his race number was 27. So they decided to kill Randy on December 27th because that was his racing number and it was symbolic. That day, Randy goes, gets breakfast, buys some cigarettes, gets gas, eats his breakfast on the way home. He gets home and Doretta is sitting there watching TV because she's watching the news because it's going to snow. Randy gives her her breakfast. She's not happy with it because it's fast food and the hash browns are cold.
Randy lays down to take a nap. Doretta takes a gun. The only gun in the house. Puts it to the back of Randy's skull.
She was like within 3 foot of his head. The gun was 3 foot away from his head. And it was point blank. I mean, she knelt down to do it. It was like God, I visualized, you know, what would you have to do this? She had literally sneak up in there, quiet, kneel down, and pull that trigger.
I think it takes a very cold heart to murder the man who's given you your life and given your family a home and given them a place to be a family. It takes a very cold-hearted person to do that, to take that man's life.
And the person you're supposed to love and the one that's supposed to love you puts a bullet in the back of your head? Does it get any more callous?
The one missing piece of this case was the gun. Randy's gun was taken out of his room, taken out of his box, taken out of his home, and we never did find it.
I think it was Gina. The gun's missing because of Gina. She helped hide the crime.
On March 2015, Doretta, Gina, and Tig are arrested for conspiring to kill Randy Sheffield. Gina pleads guilty to tampering with evidence and is given just 2 years.
It was a terrible plea bargain, but it's what we had.
Doretta is convicted of aggravated murder and is sentenced to 27.5 years in prison.
The timeline made this case. We referred to the timeline. The pathologist assisted us in the timeline. The jury listened to the timeline. And Doretta Sheffield cooked her own goose by this timeline.
Would she have done this again? Given the opportunity, the motive for money? Absolutely. If you can do it once and be that cold, get cold to the bone. That's just who you are.
The only person who never sees any jail time is Tig.
Ultimately, we couldn't tie Tig to the murder. There was enough evidence to indict him.
The fact that we never presented the case on Tig always bothers me, because Randy took Tig under his wing. He raised Tig like he was his own. He gave Tig everything and anything that he possibly could. Randy was a caring, loving man whose biggest fault is that he trusted people.
Randy lived his life and did what he wanted, and he enjoyed that. A lot of people, you know, they sort of wait, you know, oh, I'll do that when I get the time. I'll do that when I get older. I always told my mom, Randy had fun and he lived the way he wanted to, and you just have to be thankful for that.
It haunts me to think that there are people out there that could just throw somebody away like that.
A brutal killing.
Her body was in a state of decomposition. She had gone through cycles of freezing and then thawing.
It was either she stayed or she wasn't going at all.
A dark mystery with more questions than answers.
She was screaming and crying. She was telling us that it wasn't true, that we were lying.
She said, if I ever find out you're messing around with my husband, I'll kill you.
There's no question of the husband is going to be someone that's going to be looked at.
There's only one person that had the opportunity to commit this murder.
The truth will be revealed.
When people are competing for love, we're prepared to act like animals.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. On the coast of northern New England lies the picturesque city of Portland, Maine.
Portland's a small city. I mean, it's only about 65, 70,000 people. It's a very quaint place to be. It's extremely nice.
Murder is very uncommon in Portland. Violent crime is very low.
Where you have a large metropolitan area having hundreds of murders per year, Portland, you might go 3 or 4.
But on a gray and chilly January afternoon, factory worker Kerry Scott receives a phone call about his missing SUV.
Kerry Scott had attempted months prior to report his car had been stolen. He was told at the time that it was joint property because he was married, so no actual official stolen report was put out. Fast forward 2 months, and Kerry's friend happened to be walking through the motel parking lot, and he saw the red SUV.
He looked, he said, boy, that looks like Kerry's vehicle. And so he called Kerry and said, hey, is your plate number, and gave the plate number.
Kerry said, that's my truck, I'm gonna come out and get it.
Kerry's car had disappeared after being borrowed by his estranged wife, Margarita Scott.
So Kerry gets to the motel and went around to the driver's side. Then he decided he opened up the back door. And when he looked in, he saw it was, in fact, his wife, Margarita.
He immediately backed away from the vehicle. He didn't try to pull her out of the vehicle to see if she was okay or anything like that. It was clear that Margarita had been there for some time.
I can only imagine how terrifying that was for him to see after all that time.
To discard somebody in the way Rita was found, I mean, she was, shoved behind the seat of a vehicle and then left. I can't think of anything more degrading than that. It haunts me to think that there are people out there that have the ability to not only commit the crime, but then to just throw somebody away like that.
The way Margarita Scott's body is found provides few answers about what actually happened to her and raises more questions about who she was and what her life was like.
Margarita Scott, she was a really sympathetic figure. She was an immigrant to the country, but she graduated from the local high school. She was working hard to make a life for herself in America. The people who loved her cared very deeply for her.
Tasked with investigating Margarita Scott's murder are veteran homicide detectives Rich Vogel, Carl Rybeck, and Scott Pelletier.
When we arrived, there was snow on the ground. It was cold. I noticed already that there were not a lot of people around, which for me is a good thing. I'm always thinking about, okay, scene preservation.
And so we went up, opened the doors, and looked at what we had. Me, personally, I thought it was a sex crime had taken place. It just looked like something gone really bad. And then the whole story started developing.
Margarita's body was in a state of decomposition. She had gone through cycles of freezing and then thawing just due to the fluctuation in the temperatures and being in the back of the car. She had sustained a gunshot wound to her neck. The gun probably was a .40 caliber high point.
There was no signs within the vehicle that there was any type of struggle. There was no ballistics. We didn't find any gunpowder residue. We did not find any bullet holes. Minimal blood.
We know there was a gun fired and the bullet's not in the body, so the bullet's got to be somewhere. We're now looking for a crime scene.
When you see a drive and dump, or you see a victim in the woods, or you see, like in this case, a victim concealed in a car, the question is, where did this murder happen? Because that's where most of your evidence will be left behind. And until you find that, you're sort of behind the 8 ball.
Detectives begin their investigation into Margarita Scott's murder by focusing on the last 24 hours of her life, starting with her husband, Carrie.
The person that knows Margarita the best, obviously, would be her husband. So we were very interested in speaking with him right off the bat to get the initial story behind what would have led Margarita to end up in the back seat of the car found in a motel parking lot.
When brought in for questioning, Carrie Scott tells detectives that he last saw his estranged wife 2 months earlier, on November 10th.
Carrie and Margarita had been together for at least 8 years. They met in Florida and eventually moved back to Maine so Margarita could be closer to her family.
The marriage between Margarita Scott and Carrie Scott was, I think it's safe to say, a unique one. They had both come from Kazakhstan. At the time that she had gone missing, they were split up. They had sort of gone their separate ways.
She wanted to be out of the house doing things more fun. Carrie was a workaholic. He worked for a factory here in Portland, building components for cars. He would work very odd hours, go to work at 2 o'clock in the morning and work till whenever, and it was just hard. They had different lives and different schedules going. They were fighting more, and she seemed to get tied up with some rough people. He really loved her, but I think things were just out of hand. He didn't know how to fix it. So she had kind of moved out, and he had no idea where she had been going and staying.
Carrie tells the detectives that he still believed he and Margarita might get back together.
The day that Carrie last saw her, she had stayed with him at their place in Westbrook over the course of a night or a couple of previous nights.
But reveals that when he arrived home from work on November 10th, Margarita wasn't alone.
Carrie comes home, and this is when he finds her with Anthony Pratt.
Carrie explains that Margarita had recently started dating Anthony Pratt, a young man from New York, during her separation from Carrie.
It seems as though Carrie Scott knew what was going on at the very least. He seemed to understand that Margarita Scott had a relationship with Anthony Pratt. He, I guess, was willing to get over it in the short term because he maybe felt like she would come back to him eventually.
Carrie says Margarita told him she wanted to come back home, this time for good. At 2:30 p.m., Carrie agrees to drive Margarita and Anthony back to the apartment where they've been staying.
The plan was to drop Anthony off and Margarita to get her belongings and come back with Carrie.
Now, she wouldn't let Carrie drive them directly to the house because she did not want Carrie to know where she had been staying. So they wanted to be dropped off at the Cumberland Farms, and he was not to follow them.
He waited there for 30 to 45 minutes, and Margarita never returned, and he just assumed that she had left him, that that was the final straw, and she had chosen Anthony over him.
There's a basic principle in criminology and psychology that the avoidance of pain is a more powerful motivator than the pursuit of pleasure. So his tolerating this infidelity, his preparing to be humiliated and drive his wife and her paramour around is actually a better trade-off than being without her. But in spite of all that support, if you want to call it that, circumstances don't change. She still ends up dead, and he's the prime suspect.
The detectives asked Carrie how Margarita ended up with their SUV on November 10th.
Sometime during the early evening of the 10th, around 8 o'clock, she came back to the house in Westbrook, and she had a spare key because they shared the vehicle. She then took the vehicle and went back to where she had been staying, in the Cumberland Farms neighborhood.
He received a message from Margarita. Just said, Carrie, I apologize for taking the vehicle. I know you have to go to work. I'll bring the vehicle back at 2. Carrie was angry. He had to be to work. So he began to call to try to get a hold of Margarita. And she never responded.
He thought that she finally left him, and she went to New York with the boyfriend. And so Carrie turned around and went to the Westbrook police to report his vehicle missing. It was determined the vehicle was registered to both of them. So Westbrook police said, well, we can't take a stolen report on the vehicle because it's rightfully hers as much as it is yours.
To the detectives, a number of elements of Carrie's story just don't add up.
Anytime you're going to have a homicide like that, the husband is going to be someone that's going to be looked at. Carrie's whole demeanor through this whole thing made us pause. Here you're talking about this woman that you love and all this other stuff, and the things that he allowed to happen, it was just crazy to me. I think one motive would have been jealousy right off the bat. And, you know, he would have had opportunity if she was at the house.
Jealousy is a hair-trigger response justified by the fact that someone else is trying to take from them something that they value. When people are competing for our resources, which includes love, we're prepared to act like animals.
Detectives have zeroed in on their first suspect in Margarita Scott's murder. Her husband, Carrie.
He's the last one to see her. She's missing, the vehicle's missing.
In order to narrow down their timeline and determine if Carrie is their killer, the detectives need to establish when the SUV first arrived in the motel parking lot.
Basically what we did is we went back and we looked at police calls for service that happened at the motel. So as officers would spin through the lot, when their cameras were on, we would see the red SUV parked there. The first time that we saw it was on November 11th at 2:38 in the morning.
The detectives can now be certain that the SUV with Margarita's body inside appeared in the parking lot just 6 hours after she borrowed the vehicle from Carrie, making her time of death between 8 p.m. and 2:38 a.m.
How did the vehicle get there? Obviously, we wanted to know that.
What happened to Margarita Scott during those 6 hours?
Maybe he was totally mad about what she was doing, and he's had enough of it. He gets into a quarrel with her out of the jealousy he has. It gets violent, and he kills her.
Jealousy can drive a person to kill, to hurt, to stalk. It's basically an insecurity in that person. And then when it gets really bad, your relationship is pretty much done. But they don't want it to end. They'd rather lose that person than have anyone else have that person in their life.
When detectives question Carrie about where he was at 2:30 a.m. when the SUV carrying Margarita's dead body was seen arriving at the motel, he tells them he was at work from 2 o'clock a.m. until 2 o'clock p.m. on November 11th.
When we went back and did the forensics on Carrie's cell phone, as well as the interviews of his employers, his friends, his neighbors, we were able to show that everything that Carrie told us about where he was, the time frames that he gave us, they all matched up.
We were able to see through phone records on Margarita's phone all the times that he was calling, looking for her, leaving voicemail messages. He noticed that the credit card was being used in New York. So he had every indication that she was alive and possibly living in New York.
With Carey placed solidly at work from 2:00 a.m. until 2:00 p.m., he couldn't have killed Margarita and dropped the body at 2:38 a.m. The detectives then turned their focus to the new boyfriend, Anthony Pratt, who Carey says Margarita was with on the day she disappeared.
When we interviewed Carey, and he began to tell us the dynamics between him and Margarita and how their marriage was not the greatest, but that they were working on it. We were first introduced to Flacco, or Anthony Pratt. Part of our investigation obviously identified where Anthony Pratt and Margarita had been spending time. This was an apartment that was actually a home that was rented by Chris and Tennille Jennings.
Tennille and Christopher Jennings are a married couple with 2 young children, and Chris is a local drug dealer who is well known to Portland police.
Chris was also known by the street name of Red. Our investigation revealed that Chris had a history of drug trafficking. He's originally from New York. He traveled here to Maine with his wife and 2 children. They rented this home, and part of his job, the only job that Chris had, was distributing crack cocaine with Anthony Pratt.
Tracking down Anthony Pratt and Christopher Jennings becomes the detectives' top priority.
With the phone records, we were able to locate an address that Christopher was living at Concord Street in Portland.
We went to the apartment to check on these people, and we looked in the house, and it looked like nobody living on the first floor where they supposedly were supposed to be. And I contacted the landlord, and she told us she bought the building, and she told the Jennings that they had to move, that she was going to do renovations and redo the apartment.
The evidence technicians went there and they started searching around, and they went into the basement and found a huge red-brown stain that was consistent with blood in the basement. And they were able to track it and follow it along the piping. Then they went upstairs and they found more blood in the baseboard and along the bottom of the door that went into the apartment.
A blood sample is sent to the lab for DNA testing, and the results come back with a positive match for Margarita Scott.
It now became a crime scene, as far as we were concerned. So, but the problem was everything had been torn out, so we didn't know what had happened.
The destruction of the Jennings' former apartment presents a serious setback for the investigation.
Tampering in a crime scene is ultimately fatal to the credibility of any evidence recovered from those scenes. In this case, we see not so much tampering as the destruction of the scene, to the point that anything found there later on is going to be so substantially, dramatically different. You lack then the probable cause to make an arrest, and certainly even if you make an arrest, you've got major issues in terms of meeting that reasonable doubt benchmark in court.
With evidence that Margarita was killed at the Jennings' old apartment, the detectives pursue an injunction to halt the renovation. Now their number 1 priority is to track down Chris and his wife Tennille and Anthony Pratt.
We found them through the landlord. She gave us an address, which she thought they had moved to for any mail or whatever. So we went and confronted them about Margarita, and they were quite shocked. And they actually thought that Margarita had gone to New York and she was with Anthony.
The detectives want to know when the Jennings last saw Anthony Pratt.
Chris tells us that on the morning of the 11th, Anthony had to return back to New York right away. He told Chris and Tennille that his grandfather was in dire need of him, and so he had to return because of Hurricane Sandy.
The detectives question the Jennings about their whereabouts on November 10th, the night Margarita Scott disappeared.
Both Chris and Tennille remembered the date specifically. And for us as investigators, who remembers 2 months ago? They both gave similar stories about what they did and where their whereabouts were on November 10th.
As the Jennings continue to talk to the detectives, a police search of their new home raises another red flag.
When they were checking the house, they went into the rooms, and they went into the bedroom, they went into the closet, and they noticed a door in the ceiling for the crawl space up above where they were. So they popped up the door to look in the thing, and when they did, they heard a thud hit. And then they pushed the door up and they looked, and there was a handgun.
It was a High Point Smith & Wesson .40 caliber handgun, possibly a murder weapon.
With the discovery of a .40 caliber handgun, the same caliber used to kill Margarita Scott, suspicion shifts to drug dealer Chris Jennings and his wife, Tennille.
Chris might have been mad because maybe Margarita owes him money for drugs.
Detectives haul Chris and Tennille Jennings down to the station for questioning.
Chris and Tennille both stated that it was Chris's birthday, and so they had gone out that night into the Old Port. They were dropped off by Margarita sometime around 11 o'clock at night. They went to some clubs and bars.
Anthony and Margarita were supposed to be babysitting the kids on the night of the party. Margarita was set to come pick them up at 1 o'clock in the morning when the bars closed. Well, around 1 o'clock in the morning, the bars were closing and they emptied out, and Chris and his wife decided, since it's his birthday, they wanted to know if there was some place they could go until later hours.
They did not have their cell phone with them, so Tennille was able to ask somebody to borrow a phone. She called Margarita and spoke to Margarita and said, "Don't bother to come get us. We're going to take a cab over to one of the strip clubs and hang out, and we'll get a ride there. Where are you?" And she said, "I'm home with Anthony." Tennille tells us that she makes another phone call at around 2 a.m. from the club, and when she calls the house, she speaks to Anthony and asks, where's Margarita?
And he says, "I don't know." He says she left and she went to bring the truck back, and she's never come back.
It's around 3:30 in the morning. Tennille and Christopher took a cab from the strip club to their home, and when they arrived, they found Anthony laying on the couch with one of the children on his chest sleeping.
If Margarita's body was dropped at 2:38 a.m., about 40 minutes after the Jennings' second phone call home, the timeline shows both of them had the opportunity to kill her just after 2 a.m. and before they returned home at 3:30 a.m.
So Chris and Tennille went to bed. Then the next morning, Anthony Pratt woke up. He said he's got to get back to New York.
Once Anthony left to go back to New York, they might have had phone conversations, but they never saw him again. And they never saw Margarita either.
The detectives are still eager to know about the .40 caliber gun found in their home, the same caliber of weapon used to kill Margarita.
Initially, Chris and Tennille lied about having a gun or knowing anything about a gun, and they were questioned hard about that. And then finally, Chris Jennings admitted that he and Anthony had purchased it. Tennille didn't want the gun around the children, so they hid it up in the attic space in the closet.
But under intense questioning, Chris reveals a significant detail, that there had been a conflict between Tennille and Margarita that night.
Tennille was very jealous of the whole relationship between Christopher and Margarita. Tennille had been cheated on by Christopher in the past, so she was pretty antsy about the whole thing.
It's very dangerous to overlook a female as a suspect just because you assume more times than not it's a male. If you don't look at that female, that's the person that's going to get away with murder.
On the evening of the 10th, before Chris and Tennille went out, I don't know if she noticed her husband and Margarita were being over-friendly with each other, but she did make a comment to her, "If I ever find out you're messing around with my husband or anything, I'll kill you." Tennille, she could have discovered that, in fact, something did happen, and she was going to make good on what she said. There was a gun there. It was in her apartment. She had plenty of opportunity. And so that was a possibility, and a possibility we had to look at.
Is that a motive to kill? It has been in the past.
The love triangle motive, that's common because you have someone who is full of so much emotion towards two people. They may be upset at their lover, they may feel betrayed. And then towards the other person, they may feel an incredible amount of anger and the desire for revenge.
During the Jennings questioning, new DNA results come back from the lab, and the evidence is explosive.
Through a sex crimes kit, we found DNA, but we didn't know that at the time of the autopsy. A sex crimes kit will give us, hopefully, DNA of the last person to be intimate with Margarita.
And it was shown that Margarita had recent sex with Christopher. The timeline would be significant for that because the way Margarita was found, it had to have been a recent sexual encounter, probably on November 10th. So we have to look at Chris again.
We confronted Chris Jennings with this, and he finally said yes, he did have sex, and it was the days before his birthday. There was something going on at the house, a little disagreement, so he took Margarita and asked him to give him a ride to the store. And then they went up by Hall School, which is nearby, and in the parking lot, and he had sex with Margarita.
Could Tennille have found out about Chris and Margarita's sexual encounter? And if so, did she follow through on her threat to kill Margarita?
Jealousy. That would be the motive right there. A motive for Tennille to kill Margarita.
As the focus of the investigation shifts to Tennille Jennings, detectives want to find out what she knew about the relationship between Chris and Margarita.
Chris and Tennille all along would tell lies, and then we would question them about those lies, and we would have facts to back it up, and they would then tell us the truth after realizing that we knew what we were talking about.
Lying, obviously, is one of the fastest ways to derail an investigation. People may be lying because they have some involvement or they're looking to cover up either the role of themselves or somebody else in the crime. And this may have an actual catastrophic effect on the eventual investigation. Determining who's lying, something we call a veracity assessment. There's a number of techniques we can use to do this, but really, if you think about it, most people are actually pretty good lie detectors on their own. It comes from experience, it comes from intuition, it comes from street smarts, and a good investigator will have that in spades.
So Tennille starts to explain that she didn't know that Christopher and Margarita had been intimate. Tennille was screaming and crying. She was telling us that it wasn't true, that we were lying. Just did not take it well at all, and it was a genuine reaction. She was upset. If she knew anything about it, that would be the time that she would say something, if she was pissed off enough.
To confirm if Tennille is telling the truth, detectives dig deeper into her alibi.
We were able to track down the woman whose phone they borrowed in the old port, and she was able to confirm that on that particular night, she remembers someone asking to use her phone, and that they were asking if there were any places that were open later, and Chris and Tennille were directed to the strip club, PT's, because it stayed open until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then when they got to the strip club, they had a private dance, and they were trying to make a hookup with the dancer, so the dancer put Chris's phone number in her phone and called it 2 times. And those records were on Chris's phone at home.
So that placed them solidly at PT's until that time of morning.
With the Jennings alibis checking out, that means they couldn't have killed Margarita between 1 a.m. when they last spoke to her and 2:38 a.m. when the body was dropped. Chris then points the finger directly at Anthony Pratt, Margarita's boyfriend.
So he called Anthony on his cell phone, and he talked to Anthony. And he told Anthony, the police are here, they found Margarita, she's dead, and he confronted Anthony with all of this. And Anthony's reply is, well, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? Chris says, well, you killed her. What do you want me to do? That was his reply.
Anthony doesn't confess to Chris, but he doesn't deny having killed Margarita either. To the detectives, the phone call puts Anthony in a whole new light.
So even with the fact that Chris had sex with Margarita earlier and that Tennille had made a threat that she would kill Margarita, at the end of the day, when we looked at everything, the forensics, the interviews, the timeline only shows there's only one person that had the opportunity to commit this murder and to do it in the location that it happened was Anthony Pratt.
I see Anthony Pratt as a young man who's an under-controlled batterer, someone who engages in violence to exert his superiority and regain control of the relationship. Sometimes people like this almost see women as property, right? As something to be owned or ownership. And so if you're not achieving those expectations or you're behaving differently, this angers these type of people. And there's no good ways that they know to respond other than to resort to violence. So in this situation, whether he's motivated by jealousy or maybe Margarita had said she's going to break up with him, these are factors that clearly aggravate him to the point that he becomes angry enough to perpetrate this act of domestic violence.
With Anthony, now the prime suspect in Margarita's murder, and at large in New York City, detectives step up their search by enlisting the help of the NYPD to track him down.
Finding someone in a city like New York who's gone AWOL in an investigation is like a needle in a haystack.
We were already 2 months behind the 8 ball when this whole case started. We needed to find Anthony Pratt before there was greater opportunity for him to flee.
I don't think there's any doubt in his mind that the police were now looking for him.
But then they catch a break, and Anthony returns Detective Vogel's numerous calls.
I kept it very light. I just said that, I wanted to talk to him. I had heard that he was engaged to Margarita, and he had told me that he hadn't seen her, but he was willing to help out any way he could. And my thing was not to be antagonistic or aggressive in any way. I just wanted him to tell me his story. And so he had agreed to come to Portland.
Face to face with Pratt for the very first time, the detectives hope to finally get at the truth of who killed Margarita Scott.
You know something about this.
No, I do not know anything
Absolutely
about this.
you do.
They said they seen her in December, or I don't...
Nobody has seen her. Her family, her husband, nobody has seen her. When we started to ask him about certain things, and he would lie about them.
Rita takes Chris and Tennille into town, right?
Right.
Okay, so you're home watching the kids. Rita comes back there, does she?
Not that I know of.
Not that you know of.
I don't know if...
Okay, well then, Tennille calls the house at 1 o'clock in the morning. Rita answers the phone. They tell her, don't come pick her up. So that must put Rita back at the apartment, right?
I don't know.
You don't know.
He confirmed that Chris and Tennille had gone out that night, that it was Chris's birthday, and that Margarita had dropped them off, and then she never came back.
Anthony says that he left first thing the next morning to go to New York City, just like Chris Jennings had said.
It was so bizarre in the entire time from her disappearance to when she was found, Anthony Pratt never called, never tried to call her. And the phone records show that she was using her phone to call him because most of the calls on her records on her phone were from her husband trying to find her until the phone died.
The evidence against Anthony Pratt is compelling, but entirely circumstantial.
Circumstantial cases are harder to prosecute because it relies on a lot of inferences from the evidence that is available. And so where prosecutors will say it should lead you to there, if the defense attorney can say actually it could lead you to A, B, C, then that means it's reasonable doubt. But if the prosecutor has physical evidence, DNA evidence, anything that's hard evidence to connect the dots, then the prosecutor is going to be more likely to get to that reasonable doubt threshold.
In an effort to build a stronger case against Anthony, detectives returned to the neighborhood of the Jennings' former apartment, where Margarita was last seen, to search for anyone who may have seen or heard anything unusual the night of the murder.
The canvas establishes the players who are in the neighborhood or in the area at the time of the crime. It captures the world in which this crime occurred. And these are very important people to come back to later, because while they may not have seen anything suspicious, investigators sometimes need to be asking them about something not suspicious or something seemingly harmless that they saw. That may actually be as important as what they deem to be suspicious.
Just doing a canvas of the neighbors. Nobody heard a gunshot, but there was a neighbor. She had gotten home from work in the early morning hours. She was watching a movie and she went out on her front porch to have a cigarette, and it was 2 in the morning. She saw a black male with a hoodie carrying what she thought in her mind looked like a body. And then she convinced herself that she was seeing things. It was wrapped in trash bags, and the guy was having a difficult time carrying it, and went to a red SUV and opened up the back and discarded the item in the back of the SUV. There's no question Anthony Pratt is the one that murdered Margarita.
Detectives have an eyewitness account of a body being dragged from the Jennings' former apartment that fits perfectly within their timeline. We now know that Margarita Scott was killed between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock a.m. on November 11th.
Well, the timeline is very important, and I do it with all my major cases. It tells a definite story. There's no question. I mean, this is what happened.
Detectives place Anthony on the timeline and theorize that he killed Margarita in the Jennings' former apartment. But they need physical evidence, and the apartment has been ripped apart.
The evidence technicians had this grueling process of actually putting a jigsaw puzzle back together. The wooden paneling on the floor had to be picked up and placed on the walls to put it back together. As they did that, they lifted each piece, inspected it, and in one of the pieces of paneling, they located on the back side of the paneling what initially looked like maybe a piece of putty from somebody maybe spackling or something. And what it actually turned out to be was a piece of paper and a piece of chewing gum. Green chewing gum had been pushed through a hole and sealed with the gum. As they put the paneling back on the wall, they got to a spot where within the plaster, they were able to cut that piece out. And behind that, they were able to locate an actual bullet.
So if you didn't look at your walls closely and didn't see it, you would have never noticed this little piece of paper covering a hole stuck there with gum.
Evidence was sent to the state crime lab for ballistics on the bullet, as well as DNA for the chewing gum. The bullet that was recovered could only have been fired from a high-point Smith & Wesson .40 caliber handgun.
Connecting the bullet to the same kind of weapon that was used to kill Margarita Scott is a significant step forward. But detectives still need physical evidence to directly link Anthony Pratt to the weapon.
The cheek swab that was sent out for Anthony's DNA came back positive that it was his DNA on the chewing gum that was placed in the hole. We know by that he had to have been at that scene. There's just no two ways around it.
The detectives are now able to piece together Margarita Scott's final 24 hours.
Margarita would have stayed with Carrie on November 9th. November 10th, Carrie took Anthony and Margarita to Chris and Tennille's house. The plan was to drop Anthony off and Margarita to get her belongings and come back with Carrie. She never did. It was Chris Jennings' birthday. Margarita did take them out around 11 o'clock at night. Sometime after 1 a.m. on the 11th, she got a call from Tennille using a stranger's phone saying, "Don't bother picking us up, we're gonna stay out."
I believe his anger toward the fact that she still was returning home, that was the last straw. I think that she was ready to leave and was going to return that truck to her husband and probably stay at her own home like she's been doing regularly, and Anthony was going to have no part of that. It was either she stayed or she wasn't going at all. Based on all the evidence that we were able to obtain, Anthony shot Margarita in the living room floor of that home. He picked her up, took her outside, dumped her in the back of that red truck, drove the red truck. It's less than 2 miles from the home to the motel's parking lot.
On April 2nd, 2013, Anthony Pratt is arrested for the murder of Margarita Scott. He's found guilty and sentenced to 42 years in prison.
I think it was almost more for the family, that you don't want to let them down. It's the most serious offense when someone's life is taken, and there is a lot of pressure from friends and family to find out who did it.
I still wake up every morning and I still think police work is an honorable job. There are always going to be a faction of society that does not play by the rules, and somebody has to keep those people in check.
It was a difficult case from the very beginning, but pieces fell together out of just hard work, of old-fashioned police work in some sense, of just pounding the beat, and justice was done.
There was a massacre. The type of person that created this murder is a devil.
Newlyweds brutally gunned down.
This is something very personal. A lot of rounds were fired at them.
A world of unexpected suspects and secret deals.
Did this family feud that they have rise to the level of a sister killing her brother?
The life insurance policy was for $1 million. If something happened to one, the other would be paid.
You have somebody involved with an outlaw biker gang. Perhaps they owed money to this gang, and the killing was retribution.
The truth will be revealed.
There's the psychopathic undercurrent that was driving him, plus entitlement and greed. We have a cocktail of the most volatile motivators.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. Wilmington, Delaware, the largest city in the state, where some of America's wealthiest entrepreneurs live as modern-day royalty.
The DuPont Chemical Corporation was founded right on the banks of the river here. And Wilmington became sort of a prosperous little small city. It's still a city with a lot of wealth. And in the suburbs of the city, there's some of the richest people in the world. Wilmington's also on the corridor of I-95, so it's on a pipeline of drugs. So consequently, there's a lot of drug gangs that popped up.
Wilmington itself has gotten some negative press. It was recently referred to as Murder Town in a Nationwide article.
Wilmington was the third most violent city of its size in the country. But it's really based on 4 small neighborhoods. If you go there at night and you're involved in anything illegal, your life could be in jeopardy.
Early one Sunday morning, Wilmington's violence crosses over into an unexpected part of town, the Paladin Club condominiums.
Newcastle County 911.
I just heard arguing, and the last thing I heard was "what the F," and then 3 gunshots.
Newcastle County 911.
We need help. My neighbor is laying on the ground. She's hurt, right? She has blood all over her body.
So 1:16 a.m., 911 received a call about a woman down on the ground, apparently shot, very bloody scene. Police arrived and they saw this woman. She was shot at close range. She was shot 4 times. She was shot in the face and other parts of her body.
The victim is 39-year-old Olga Connell.
Olga is this sweet, very striking woman. She's outgoing. She likes to socialize. She grew up in Russia, in this coastal city. In her mid-20s, she decided to come to the United States.
At the crime scene, police soon make another grisly discovery.
There's a male off to the left of the front door. He was lying face down, clutching his cell phone. He had multiple gunshot wounds, and there were cartridge casings around his body. The close proximity of the cartridge casings, you could tell that someone stood over top of him and fired.
The second victim is Olga's husband, mechanic and entrepreneur Joe Connell.
My Joey, he was a sweet boy. Joey was very active. He was interested in so many things growing up. He had a wonderful personality. He made everybody around him happy. He was special.
The Connells are newlyweds who got married 3 months earlier.
Joe was a rugged motorcycle driving mechanic who liked to eat takeout all the time. And then he met Olga, who was sophisticated and gorgeous and liked to go out to restaurants and fancy stuff. So they blended that. She would do what he liked to do. He did what she liked to do. They just enjoyed each other. Oh, they were happy.
Heading up the investigation into the murders of Joe and Olga Connell are Sergeants Jamie Leonard and Justin Breslin.
At the crime scene, Olga had her keys in the front door. Her phone was on the sidewalk. All her jewelry was still on. They had car keys. They had everything.
We could tell fairly quickly that it wasn't a robbery or anything like that.
This is something very personal. A lot of rounds were fired at them. Olga clearly made it to the door, and she starts taking fire. And based upon the way he fell, which was face down, Joe attempted to flee, but was unsuccessful.
There was 2 different calibers of ammunition. It was 9mm and .22 caliber ammunition. It definitely means 2 different weapons. But whether or not there were 2 shooters remains to be known.
This is often the telltale marker of what we call a team killing, which is 2 or more people united in a single act of murder.
This wasn't something that just randomly happened. It was something that appeared to be planned.
There's an empty parking spot directly in front of their building. And in that parking spot, off to the side, there's a live round of ammunition. So was the shooter parked in this parking spot? And if they weren't, why didn't Joe and Olga park directly in front of their building? Because it had been raining. So the natural deduction in that was that this particular spot was occupied by the person or people responsible for this. This case was unique in the sense that there were 2 victims. We deal with and have seen drug-related killings or killings that were the result of a robbery gone bad. But the manner in which they were shot is not something we customarily see in here, and that is an execution. They were executed in front of that building. Someone came there to do a specific task, was successful in that task, and then fled.
To find the Connells' killer, detectives will need to reconstruct the final 24 hours of their lives.
So police know that between 1:16 a.m. and 1:19 a.m., there were the sounds of gunshots, and that provides a window for when this might have occurred.
Timelines are important, generally speaking, because they give you a starting point. We have the homicide of Joe and Olga Connell, and then we work backwards. And in working backwards, we need to figure out who Joe and/or Olga were talking to, who they might have been with, who they had seen before they were killed.
To help fill out the couple's final hours, investigators speak with Joe's mother, Mickey.
Olga is going to be 39 years old. So that night, they went to dinner with some of their friends.
There was food, there was drink, and was, all their close friends. Everybody left around 12:30, and then Joe and Olga hung around for a little bit. Maybe they had a last drink, and they left around 1 o'clock.
Detectives ask Mickey if she knows of anyone with a grudge against Olga or Joe. She offers up an unexpected tale of bitter sibling rivalry.
I have 4 children, and everyone grew up in Delaware. Kelly is the youngest, then comes Joe. I was closest with Joey growing up. He was a jokester, prankster, did a lot of pranks to me. I grew up always knowing Joey was the favorite. It just is how it was. He got everything he wanted, no matter what it was. And it's always given to him.
Detectives learn that years earlier, when Kelly got married, her mother gave her a diamond ring. The family heirloom soon became a point of contention between the siblings.
Joey said, "Mom, I would really like to marry Olga. And I was wondering what you did with your ring." I said, "I gave him to Kelly." And he said, "Do you think you can get him back from Kelly?" So I got the ring. I gave it to Joe. So I didn't see where Kelly would really need that ring at that time because she's divorced. And Joey asked me, and I would do anything for Joey. When Kelly found out this was bad, it was a $20,000 ring. I was really angry. I just felt kicked in the teeth.
Furious, Kelly confronts Joe and Olga.
She made texts to Olga asking for the ring back. Then Olga was upset. That's when the fight started. Joe was livid. Joe said, "I don't want anything to ever do with you or your children again. Stay the F away." They were getting nasty.
When the couple's home is burglarized shortly before the murder, all eyes turn towards Kelly.
In July of that year, someone had pried open their front door and stolen some jewelry, a laptop, and fled.
Joe thought Kelly did it because he was telling people. And some of the family said, "Oh, Kelly probably did it." All arrows pointed to Kelly. So I was caught in the middle of thinking, did she or did she not?
It's not uncommon for family to kill family, but did it happen? In this case, Sergeant Breslin and I had to get in there and figure out exactly what happened.
In the brutal murder of Joe and Olga Connell, detectives zero in on a surprising suspect. Joe's sister, Kelly.
Joe, Kelly, and Olga had been fighting over this ring, and that burglary. The feud intensified, and Olga tried to get what we call here in Delaware a protection from abuse order, or you may know as a restraining order. The feud was certainly something that could come to violence.
When there's an application for a restraining order, it tells me some conflict has escalated to the point that maybe one party or both are feeling that aggression or violence is a possible option.
Did this family feud that they have rise to the level of a sister wanting to have her brother killed? Or possibly physically killing her brother?
Detectives bring Joe's sister, Kelly, into the station for questioning.
Kelly's reaction when we told her what happened to her brother, it weighed heavy on her. We would have to go through 15 minutes allowing her to compose herself every time we talked to her. But her reaction could be faked.
With suspicion swirling around Kelly, police ask about her whereabouts the night of the murders.
I'm home recovering from surgery at this time. I'm just home, focusing on me, focusing on my kids, brokenhearted that Joey's not there for me.
Detectives dig into Kelly's story to confirm whether she's telling the truth or lying.
We learned that just prior to her brother's death, Kelly had had a medical procedure done that kind of rendered her not necessarily bedridden, but she didn't go out of the house very often. She was weak, she was tired. We're looking through her phone and see she's communicating with people that night, telling them, hey, I'm at home tonight, or yeah, I'm not leaving the house. And also, GPS tower locations show that she was where she said she was. On top of all that, we know she had no means to pay someone to do this. This double homicide, if it was a paid contract, it's not cheap. At this point in time, Sergeant President and I were confident that Kelly's not the driving force behind the death of her brother and his wife.
Before leaving, Kelly reveals there's someone she's always been suspicious of. Joe's business partner, Chris Rivers.
Kelly was not fond of Chris Rivers. She had nothing good to say about Chris.
Chris and Joe partnered at this one shop called CNS Automotive. Chris bought this old Jiffy Lube, and he converted it into a high-tech auto repair shop, and it was very successful. Joe goes to work at the shop. Joe was a good mechanic, and he's reliable, and Chris asked Joe to be his partner.
Looking for answers, detectives bring Chris Rivers down to the station for questioning.
Talking to Chris Rivers, you could see that he was visibly nervous. He was breathing heavily, and you could see his pulse in his neck. We told him we were there to speak to him about his business partner.
Early this morning, we received a call about a shooting in Paladin Club where Olga and Joe live, and both of them were killed.
Are you serious? Do they know who did it?
Chris's reaction to Joe and Olga's death raises a red flag.
Genuine grief just didn't really manifest itself at all. I gave him a minute, kind of stepped away and watched from the monitoring room to see if maybe it's just because there's just like machismo. He doesn't want to break down and cry in front of me. It just never changed. It was this fake, repetitive, oh my God, oh my God.
Oh my God.
It varies case by case what reveals a suspect who's actually committed the crime will sort of unveil for investigators. Some will go too far, will go over the top, excessive grief. Some become too restrained. Everyone deals with grief differently, so you don't want to focus too much on a grieving person's behavior.
Despite his odd reaction, Chris is forthcoming.
He told us Joe had done a little time in prison after an incident at a bar where he brandished a shotgun.
He was convicted at a jury trial of firearms charges, some aggravated menacing charges, and ends up with a mandatory prison sentence.
After getting out of prison, Joe tried to turn his life around.
Joe was attempting to do everything right. He got this job. He's staying out of trouble by all accounts. There's no record of him getting into any sort of probation trouble after his initial prison term. He seems to be on the right track.
But Chris says as the business grew, the partnership started to fall apart, especially after Joe hired Olga as their receptionist.
He then goes on to say that Olga works there too, and they're always together, and they leave early together. Ultimately, Chris says that Joe had become a problem around the shop. He wasn't pulling his weight. He wasn't working full hours.
So you said he wouldn't come to work. What was his explanation to that?
He said he had stuff to do, running around, had meetings to go to with Olga. I mean, whenever I wasn't there, I'd still hear stories, people stopping by, he disappearing.
With tension at play between Chris and Joe, detectives ask him where he was the night of the murders.
Now we need to kind of establish this timeline. When's the last time you spoke to Joe? When's the last time you guys had met up or you socialized? So he begins to give me more or less a play-by-play of his whereabouts.
Chris was supposed to show up for a celebration of Olga's birthday. However, Chris never showed up. He never made it to the bar.
He was late getting done from work. And then he had to get his child's mom dinner. Then he says that he went home. So I asked Chris for times, are you having any communication with him back and forth? He said, yeah, we were texting back and forth related to, are you coming down to this party?
According to Chris, at 11:38, Joe texted, saying he and Olga would only be out for another hour. So Chris decides to stay home for the night.
Chris said that he was home, and he said that he had surveillance to support his alibi at the time of the murder.
So you go from the shop to your house, or?
I have video at my house.
Oh, you do? Okay. What time do you get to your house?
I'd say around 11 o'clock.
Chris told us to take my surveillance cameras that I have both inside and outside of my house.
Detectives dig into Chris's alibi for the night of the murders.
So we have more or less this timeline from surveillance cameras and Joe's phone that shows this communication between he and Chris. We talked to his child's mother, who said, yeah, he came in about 11 with dinner. We had good, quality, credible information. Chris was home when Joe and Olga were killed. That was clear. He got home about 11, and he left the following morning.
With his alibi confirmed for the time of the killings, Chris tells police he has some information he's been holding back.
Chris says that Joe used a lot of steroids. And Joe sells steroids from my shop. Chris says to me, it makes me mad, and I'm angry about it, and I confronted him about it. And he ultimately says to me, I don't want these guys coming after me. And I said, what guys are you referring to? He's like, well, this has got to be about steroids.
As detectives consider that the murders could be related to Joe's illegal side venture, Chris makes his most startling disclosure yet.
Chris had offered up that Joe was involved with or a member of a outlaw motorcycle club called the Pagans. Chris had suggested that maybe the Pagans could be responsible for this. We look at the fact that, one, that Joe and Olga were executed. Two, we know now from Chris that Joe was selling steroids. And now enter this outlaw motorcycle club.
So there's always questions when you hear somebody who's involved in illegal activity and also involved with an outlaw biker gang. Perhaps they owed money to this gang, and the killing was retribution for the debt owed.
For what we know about their organization. Killing, drug dealing, all these things kind of fit in with the way they operate. So we're thinking that, yeah, this actually is something to follow.
These are money-driven organizations at the end of the day. Outlaw motorcycle gangs dabble in enough forms of crime. If you were to cross them and steal from them, you wouldn't be in a very good position. And it looks as though Joe may have been in deep to these people.
In the brutal double homicide of Joe and Olga Connell, police are working a new theory that the newlyweds could have been killed by outlaw motorcycle gang, the Pagans.
Talking to different friends and family members, we found out while Joe was in prison, he became acquainted with the Pagans Motorcycle Club, and they became close. And Joe would associate with the Pagans.
We loved all of them because they were a group of riders. When he came out of prison, they liked to ride together. I knew a couple of them, and one of them that really was a good friend of Joe's.
Through their law enforcement sources, the police checked the Pagans to see if there was any beef with Joe. And they assured the police, no, we got no problem with Joe Connell.
But could this be a lie being fed to them by lower-level gang members?
We were able to get in touch with a member of that club who held an authoritative type position. He reiterated to us that Joe was a friend of several of the members there, but that they had nothing to do with his death, that they were as taken aback by it as everyone else. So we were able to close the book on that, at least for the time being.
With the Pagans' lead eliminated, the investigation into the double homicide of Joe and Olga Connell hits a wall.
People that live in Wilmington and around Wilmington were worried about all these shootings. 2 people ended up dead in front of their condo building, and these killers were still walking the streets.
There's the pressure you put on yourself, and also the pressure from these external factors when it comes to narrowing down the suspect. We're working through these theories that we have. So eventually, one of these is going to lead to something.
This is really where commitment and staying focused and having a homicide team that mutually trusts each other is so important. At the end of the day, you are working for the victim and the victim's families.
Police widen the scope of their investigation, looking at anyone in the Connells' lives they may have missed who had motive to want them dead.
We also sent out a media request saying, hey, anything you guys know about these people, can you please call us? And we were getting anonymous tips about a guy named Harry. He knew Joe. He would be up at CNS Automotive, Chris and Joe's auto shop from time to time.
Searching Harry's name in their database, detectives discover he has a long rap sheet.
Harry Cook does have, in fact, a history with criminal activity. And also, he lives really close to the scene of these homicides. So we focus our attention on him.
With Harry in their crosshairs, police haul him down to the station for questioning.
It started off a little adversarial, and Harry Cook tells us, I'm not speaking to you. We need to figure out what's happening and figure out his whereabouts around the time of this homicide. We ultimately end up with a search warrant at his house and his phone records. But there's nothing that's really out of the ordinary.
The search doesn't turn up anything connected to the murders. Looking for information, investigators question Harry's girlfriend.
And she says, look, I don't really know a lot about Harry's business dealings, but I do know on the day that Joe and Olga were killed, Harry was in Pittsburgh. He went up there with some friends to watch a Steelers game. So we trekked up to Pittsburgh, found him on video, and realized, okay, this guy has this alibi.
Once Harry is cleared as a suspect, he agrees to cooperate with detectives.
He was really forthcoming with information about what he knew. He told us that he was an investor in CNS Automotive. He invested over $150,000 into that business.
He told the police, Chris is always looking for partners to put cash infusion into the shop. His father had put $325,000 into the business.
Detectives question why Chris Rivers, who's running a successful business, would be in need of so much cash.
Harry said that Chris was blowing through money because he was buying drugs.
He's spending, by some accounts, like $4,000 a week just on prescription painkillers. He was doing a lot of them. 100 oxycodone pills like twice a week, and sometimes cocaine. So Chris had a very expensive drug habit, and he had a habit of not paying his bills. He had debts, and he owed a lot of people a lot of money.
He always told everyone Joe Connell was spending everything, living lavishly, going out to eat, buying expensive Mercedes. Or in actuality, Chris Rivers was the one spending all the money.
As investigators comb through the automotive shop's financials, they make a crucial new discovery.
We found out there was a large insurance policy that Chris and Joe Connell placed on one another for the business. So they essentially insured one another. If something happened to one, the other would be paid. The life insurance policy that Chris Rivers had on Joe Connell was for $1 million.
Chris is reported to have a significant debt. It's possible that he could resort to desperate measures in an effort to pay this debt or to obtain even more financial resources. It certainly wouldn't be beyond the realm of possibility for somebody to kill to obtain that money.
Police can now see a clear motive for Chris to kill his partner, Joe: money.
Harry said that several months before, Chris was visibly upset. He'd been crying, he was angry, and he went on about how Joe was taking money and Chris couldn't pay the mortgage and he couldn't buy food for his kid, and kind of like doom and gloom. Chris had been bad-mouthing Joe a lot. Then Harry says that Chris makes this really odd comment to him. He says, "I'm just gonna have Joe killed."
After a series of false starts and dead ends, investigators circle back to a previous suspect in Olga and Joe Connell's murder, Joe's business partner, Chris Rivers.
Chris Rivers was interesting because there was money and greed, drugs, but we have good information that he is at home when the homicide happens. You always have to keep that in your mind, that I don't want to get too far down this rabbit hole when we should be over here, looking at other possibilities.
Looking for evidence connecting Chris to the Connells' murders, police conduct a search of Joe and Chris's automotive shop.
We find steroids in the shop. And then Chris comes back to our police station.
Chris Rivers described the steroids that were at the shop as being Joe's. He specifically told us that they were there. And he said, I told him to get that stuff out of the shop, but he keeps selling it. And
the decision been made amongst us that we're gonna charge Chris with the possession of these steroids that were in his shop. So I inform him of that, and he requests an attorney and says, I'm not talking to you anymore.
With Chris refusing to talk, investigators subpoena his cell phone records. They uncover calls and text messages deleted around the time of the Connells' murder.
We have Chris's call detail records, who he was calling, who he was texting. Chris had deleted a lot of communication between he and an unknown phone number. We learned that that number is associated with a guy named Joshua Bay.
Joshua Bay and Chris Rivers texting back and forth prior to the homicide.
Digging into Joshua Bay's background, investigators learn he has a checkered past.
He's a felon who had gun convictions. Most recently, he was on probation for passing counterfeit $100 bills at the casino south of Wilmington.
When you look at the cases in which he was involved in, he always made some sort of deal. He always offered up some sort of information to help him. And we thought maybe that would be beneficial to us.
Detectives haul Joshua Bay down to the station for questioning.
The first time I talked to Josh, I just want to know hey man, how do you know Chris Rivers? Do you know Chris Rivers? You know, we couldn't even get past that. No, I have no idea who he is. Then he said, oh, he's my mechanic. Okay, why were you talking to him at 11 o'clock at night on the 21st? I must have butt dialed him.
So they go to Bay. Well, why did you call him several times the night of this murder? And he called you too. Bay comes back and has another story. So the police say, well, no, that's not true either, is it?
He essentially lied repeatedly to Sergeant Leonard during that interview. And he was charged with providing a false statement.
And he admits that he sells Chris pills and sometimes cocaine.
Believing Chris and Joshua were working together, investigators dig into Joshua's phone records, looking for evidence of a conspiracy.
On the night of the murder, you see Chris Rivers communicating with Josh Bay, and then Josh Bay in turn communicating with someone else.
And that number came back to a guy named Dominique Benson. Dominique was known to law enforcement and to other people around Wilmington as being a contract hitman.
Investigators also learned that the hitman Dominique often worked with another man named Aaron Thompson.
He said there are 2 paid assassins that will do hits for $10,000 apiece. And he had named Benson and Thompson as these guys.
Working to establish there was a conspiracy to kill the Connells, investigators also searched through Dominique Benson's phone records.
We found this communication between all these people that we're talking about up to this point. Joe, Chris, Josh, Dominique, is all linear. You see that after Joe talks to Chris, and Chris talks to Josh, Josh talks to Dom. Dom then calls the guy named Aaron Thompson. The information was all starting to kind of come together, but it all hinged upon Josh putting context to this conversation. The only person that sat right in the middle of all this was Joshua Bay. He'd be able to tie the front and the back end together for us. But Josh isn't moving on his position that he does not have any information to offer. So we're dead in the water from this point forward unless Joshua Bay can provide us some information.
Investigators suspect Olga and Joe Connell were killed in a conspiracy, masterminded by Joe's business partner, Chris Rivers, to collect on a $1 million life insurance policy. Rivers' acquaintance, Joshua Bay, is key to cracking the case, but police can't get him to talk.
Frequently, the low-hanging fruit, or in this case, somebody in the middle, if you can get to them first, you can work the chain of the conspiracy up from there.
So we are preparing for Josh Bay providing a false statement to law enforcement trial. Sergeant President and I went up to the courthouse to process Josh on his arrest warrant. At the courthouse, Josh offered us basically a full confession in what his involvement was in this entire incident.
Josh finally collapses and gives in to what we call death by 1,000 cuts. The investigators in this case were relentless, and ultimately that proved to be too much for this guy.
When detectives question Joshua Bay, he says to understand his role in Joe and Olga's murders, he has to go back to when he met Chris.
From time to time, you go to CNS Automotive, have his car worked on. Josh had been in a car accident, had been prescribed oxycodone. Chris says something to Josh to the effect of, hey, do you sell those? Josh says, yeah, these are prescribed, but I can get you whatever you need. So they begin to forge this relationship based solely upon the sale of drugs.
Over the years, Chris starts confiding in Joshua about his business partnership.
Chris says Joe steals money. Joe doesn't come to work. Joe drives fancy cars. Then Chris asked Josh something to the effect of, hey, you know anybody that could take him out? And Josh says, I was a little taken aback. I'm wondering if they're trying to set me up. So I laugh it off. And And a couple months later, Chris says, no, I'm serious. What are we talking about? I'll pay whatever. Chris and Josh go back and forth on price. And Josh tells us that he went so far as to ask Chris, well, why do we have to kill Olga? And he says that Chris said, I don't know what will they have. I want to make sure she doesn't get half this business. Ultimately decide that Dominique's going to do the killing with Aaron Thompson. From that point on, Joe and Olga became more or less hunted.
Joshua reveals that prior to the murder, Chris orchestrated the break-in at the Connells' home, then worked to shift the blame.
He had Josh Bay burglarize Joe's home. And then Chris had a burner phone. He was sending these threatening texts from me to Joe and Olga to the point where they tried to get a restraining order. Chris was fueling this fight between Joe and I. I didn't know all this was going on.
With Joshua's confession, detectives are now able to fill in the final 24 hours of Joe and Olga Connell's lives.
Josh says on the day of the actual killing, he reaches out to Chris. Chris says something to him like, tonight's the night, 7 o'clock, they're going out to a restaurant.
On September 21st at 7 p.m., the Connells head out to celebrate Olga's birthday with friends.
So at 8 p.m., Chris is at the shop. He texts Joe to find out if they're at dinner, and Chris talked about that he would actually go. But then at 11, Chris arrived home with his food for his girlfriend. At 11:38, Joe texts and says, look, we're gonna stay about another hour. We're having a good time. At 11:43, 5 minutes after Joe texts Chris texts Bay, and then Bay follows up with a text to Benson, and Benson follows up with a text to Aaron Thompson. So they're all on the same page before the murders.
Olga and Joe leave the restaurant at 1 a.m. and head straight home.
At 1:15, they arrive home. They walk up to the door. Olga puts her keys into the lock and goes to open it. And someone started firing. Joe tried to take off. Someone ran after him and shot at him, got him down, and fired point blank in the back of his head.
It was horrible. He died hating me. Yep. It's the worst. My family really believed for a long time that I had something to do with this. That really hurts me. It was awful. Chris had all of us fooled. At the end, he took the heart of our family away from us.
Joshua Bay, the middleman, pleads guilty to conspiracy and is sentenced to 5 years. Hitman Aaron Thompson is convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder. He's sentenced to 2 life sentences, plus 45 years. His partner, Dominique Benson, receives 5 years for conspiracy.
These guys were foolish enough to use their own phones. But thankfully for us, they did, because taking the evidence that we have and meshing them into this timeline, we were able to push the whole thing together and see it through to successful prosecution.
Finally, mastermind Chris Rivers is convicted of conspiracy and 2 counts of first-degree murder. He's sentenced to 2 life sentences, plus 50 years.
This crime, I think, speaks to, number one, the psychopathic undercurrent that was driving him. But number 2, entitlement and greed. And there's really no other way to slice it.
I want people to remember Joe and Olga and about the tragedy that happened to them and how horrific it was. It was a massacre. I want everybody to know that the type of person that created this murder is a devil.
It's good to know that there's some sort of closure for their family. It's not hanging unsolved, but it'll never heal the wound of it all.
when you love somebody, make sure you tell them you love them. Make up with everybody. Don't go to sleep angry. You might never get the chance again. You know, to tell them you love them. That's a hard thing to deal with.
Kelly and I are very close now. Went through a whole lot, and thank God. But we missed everything about Joe and Olga.
This was a brutal attack on Katrina Smith.
A vicious murder.
The individual who attacked her was going to make sure that she did not survive.
A dark mystery with multiple suspects.
She felt that she was being followed or stalked by somebody.
Katrina knew that her life was in danger.
Peeping Toms are actually a very high-risk category of voyeur, so that is an immediate red flag.
The truth will be revealed.
How did he know about blood in the trunk? This is bigger than just one piece. This is a whole huge corner of that puzzle.
Every day in North America, dozens of people are murdered. The key to solving the toughest of these homicides lies in the final 24 hours of the victim's life. To crack the case, detectives must reconstruct that critical timeline. The minutes and hours containing evidence that can help unlock the mystery and catch the killer. McChesney Park, Illinois, a quiet enclave 2 hours from Chicago.
McChesney Park is kind of like a bedroom community. It's a smaller community. It's more quaint.
It's very close-knit. You can leave your doors open, and there's not a lot of crime.
You have your vehicle burglaries, you have, your home burglaries that happen, crimes of opportunity, crimes of violence in McChesney Park. That doesn't happen every day. That's not Chicago. It's more relaxed. It's a safer city.
But on the afternoon of October 23rd, that peaceful tranquility is brutally shattered.
Sheriff's Communications, can I help you?
My wife, I'm concerned because I haven't been able to reach her.
Okay.
We had a frantic, distraught, worried husband, Todd Smith. He reports that his wife is disappeared.
You haven't been able to reach your wife?
Right.
What's your wife's name?
Katrina.
He had seen her the night before. And now all of a sudden, he's very concerned because she hasn't contacted him. She hasn't answered the phone. And he doesn't know what's happened to her.
The missing woman is 30-year-old Katrina Smith.
From the information we gathered about Katrina, she's a super friendly woman who would do anything for anybody.
Katrina works in human resources at a local automotive plant.
She was at work every day at 8 o'clock at Cameron Industries. Excellent employee, always had a smile on her face, always cheery. She attended church in Rockford quite regularly. She was very devoted to her family.
Tasked with investigating the disappearance of Katrina Smith are veteran detective Vince Lindbergh and Criminal Bureau Chief Prosecutor Marilyn Height Ross.
The State's Attorney's Office is involved very early on any crime investigation that appears to be suspicious. So once Katrina Smith was reported missing, we were involved immediately.
Investigators meet with Katrina's husband, Todd Smith, to gain more information about her disappearance.
The night before, which would have been October 22nd, Katrina had confirmed a job interview for the morning of October 23rd at 7:30, and then she was to report to work after that.
Before 7 a.m., Todd had texted Katrina, wishing her well on her job interview. You know, you'll do well, knock it out of the park.
But she never appeared for the job interview, and she did not report for work on October 23rd.
He had attempted to call her, attempted to contact her. She had vanished, she had disappeared.
Investigators get their first big break when Katrina's car is spotted, only a few miles from her house.
The car was recovered right about 7:50 that night, roughly 2 hours after Todd had made the report. It was on Ventura, which is about 3 to 4 miles away from the family house.
It was parked like near the edge of the river, and it was just abandoned.
This is not a habitual place for anyone to leave their car, so this in itself is strange.
If it's someone who might have attacked her and wanted her vehicle, we suspect that the vehicle would have been moved from the Winnebago County area, and it had not been moved. So we were suspicious then that she was probably not alive.
I mean, this is a girl who is, by every definition, just a fantastic, solid family woman who has a solid job, a career that she's looking to improve. So what we're thinking now is something suspicious, something foul had happened to Katrina.
To solve the mystery, investigators will need to piece together the last 24 hours of her life.
It's a puzzle, and each piece, you have to see where it fits to make a story, to make a case. So timeline is everything.
But with no sign of Katrina, detectives have their work cut out for them.
There's forensic evidence that you can obtain from your victim, which will narrow your timeline. Without a crime scene, we just don't know. We're still kind of shooting in the dark here.
The community of Machesney Park bands together to help find Katrina Smith.
Hundreds of people literally come out from the community searching everywhere. They were instructed anything that they thought was unusual or suspicious to right away call us, and we would have our crime scene officers come out and gather up that evidence.
After hours of searching, authorities find some unsettling items belonging to Katrina.
We located her cellular phone, which was found in a bush that was not far from the marital home in the area of the Rock River. We also located her purse, which was found in that same area a short distance away.
This is not consistent with someone who just took the day off work and is playing hooky, or someone who has decided to go missing or make themselves disappear.
The abandoned vehicle, along with the personal items, are an ominous sign.
What I'm thinking is that someone has probably killed Katrina. And I don't think at this point it's someone who was a total stranger, because they left all of her valuables. They didn't take her car, they didn't take her purse.
The first person investigators interview is Katrina's husband, Todd, who filed the missing persons report.
Todd was distraught. He was so concerned about her. He loved her. They had just taken an anniversary trip and celebrated their 7-year marriage.
The partner's the first person that the investigators look at because that's the person that has the most emotional investment into the victim. Whether it's a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband or wife, that's always the person that seems to be the most connected.
Todd is cooperative and willing to answer any questions that come his way.
I'm asking him, does she have a gambling problem? Todd tells me no. She wouldn't do that. Does she have a drug problem? Nope, that's out of the question. Does she have a problem with having a relationship outside the family, outside of him? Absolutely not. They both supposedly had been cheated on in the past, so that would never come up. That would never be a focus of any problems. Todd explained that to us, that their marriage was excellent.
But Katrina has been staying at a friend's condominium, which raises questions for detectives.
Why is she staying somewhere else and you're staying at the family home?
He indicated that there were no issues in the marriage. Katrina was house sitting for her friend at the condominium, and that everything was fine.
Detectives questioned Todd about the last time he saw Katrina.
He tells us that Katrina had arrived home at about 6 p.m. He said that she arrived at the home to do laundry because she had a job interview the next morning. Todd had told us that she was very concerned about her appearance for the interview, so she wanted to go out and grab a new outfit. So she left the home at 9 o'clock p.m. to do some shopping for her job interview.
That night, Katrina was planning to sleep at the condo she was looking after. An avid football fan, she was looking forward to the game.
She was a Bears fan. She didn't want to miss the game. And so she wanted to get back to her friend's condo to watch the game. He had sent her a message at about 11 p.m. that night saying sweet dreams and expected to hear back from her. He didn't, so he figured she was probably in bed asleep because she was very focused on this job interview for the next morning.
Detectives searched the condo, looking for clues about what may have happened to Katrina.
There was no sign that Katrina had slept there the night before or had been there at all. We now know that she never made it back to the condominium. And so the question is, what has happened in between that time period?
Detectives have now determined Katrina was likely killed between 7:30 a.m. and 9 p.m. the night before, on October 22nd. Armed with this information, they questioned Todd about his whereabouts during this time period.
After Katrina left the family home that night, Todd had told us that he did do some emailing on his computer and then went to bed. Now, we know from Todd's cell phone that he did text Katrina at about 11 p.m. that night or shortly after 11 p.m. and said, sweet dreams, good night. The next day, Todd had appointments to go out on, but during the morning, he worked from home and he did some emails.
Basically, the computer that he would have been working from home on confirmed that he was at home.
With Todd's alibi checking out, detectives now shift their focus to other potential suspects.
We're looking for any speck of information that can give us a lead that may be able to help us determine what has happened to her. Todd tells us a couple years prior, they had a peeping Tom at their house. Someone was peeping at their home. It was determined that it was a young man from the neighborhood area.
Whenever you have a peeping Tom in a neighborhood, that is an immediate red flag. Peeping Toms, for years, were dismissed as sort of a nuisance crime. We now know better. Peeping Toms are actually a very high-risk category of voyeur. These behaviors often escalate to actual attacks.
This could have been a person lurking around the home to potentially attack her once she had left the home.
In the investigation, we find out the young man's actually connected to Katrina and Todd through a church youth organization. He lives in the neighborhood. He has been to the house before. We want to look into that. That's a potential lead. I mean, if he's peeping 2 years ago, has his behavior progressed to murder?
Working a theory that a peeping Tom who targeted Katrina in the past might have turned violent, detectives hunt him down.
Somebody who's spying on people or looking in on people, say through their windows. They're engaging in obtaining intimate information about that person without their consent. The majority of people don't escalate into hands-on offenders, people who would rape or murder, but it can happen.
We go back through all the reports of anything that has happened in that neighborhood that's suspicious. And there was a second report of a peeper in that same neighborhood. It was reported by a different woman who had a very similar resemblance to Katrina.
Detectives canvass the neighborhood for information on a potential stalker when they notice a video surveillance camera at a neighbor's home.
We asked the owner for the video, and that video was not a great video. It's dark outside, it's raining heavily, but in that video, it discloses a figure crossing his yard on the 22nd, late at night while it's raining.
The person appeared to be walking in the direction of Katrina and Todd's home at approximately 11:30 p.m. You could not tell who the individual was, but what you could tell is that it appeared to be a male. It appeared to be someone of small stature.
Then this figure goes across his yard and into a field Now, who's gonna be out in a rainstorm like that, cutting through a field? It's just something that really raises red flags.
Identifying this person could be the break detectives need to unravel the mystery of Katrina's disappearance.
Is this the young man that was peeping 2 years ago? We need to look at him and find out, is there any potential of him being a valid suspect in the disappearance of Katrina? Is that minute possibility may be the key to open up the whole case.
Detectives track down the peeping Tom, who's living several hours away.
This individual was in fact in college and was on the college campus at the time that Katrina went missing.
He tells detectives he never left campus that night. They check the school's security logs and video, which confirm the young man's story.
Law enforcement was able to substantiate that he was nowhere near Katrina the night she went missing, nor the marital home.
With the peeping Tom theory proving to be a dead end, detectives return to the timeline, hoping it will reveal something new about Katrina Smith's final steps on the day she disappeared.
Katrina Smith worked as an HR representative. She had worked in that field for approximately 4 to 5 years. She was very well liked by her coworkers and her supervisors. Christina, her supervisor, had last seen her on October 22nd, that Monday, at approximately 5 p.m. when Katrina had left work.
Talking with Katrina's supervisor, detectives learn about an alarming incident that recently took place at Katrina's work.
Christina tells us it was during a lunch hour at Cameron Industries where a vehicle had pulled through the parking lot and disseminated about 300 or so flyers.
The flyer was very derogatory, and it was disparaging the character of Katrina Smith.
Why would anybody disseminate flyers through a parking lot of a business ridiculing and demeaning Katrina? So this is very disturbing.
This is someone whose anger justifies and rationalizes what they do next. It could be distributing flyers one day, posting things on social media one day. It could be something much worse another day.
Initially, it was not reported to the police because everyone thought it was just an isolated incident. But after she went missing, we were able to recover the video.
The driver of that vehicle, he or she, was disguised with a wig, glasses, and unfortunately, the vehicle, although it was black, we had no license plate because the license plates were not on the vehicle.
From the video, it's impossible to identify the car or the driver, but detectives have gained a shocking new detail about Katrina's personal life.
The flyer also indicated that she was having an affair with someone and was cheating on her husband.
So now we have a flyer that's being disseminated by an unknown suspect that's referring to Katrina having a relationship with somebody at work named Guy.
Guy Gabriel is a recently divorced co-worker who has been seen spending time with Katrina.
We're getting this information from Christina at work that there is rumors that Guy Gabriel and Katrina are having a relationship.
Katrina had eventually started to confide in Christina that there were marital issues and that the marriage was not going well.
This was something that was never mentioned by Todd Smith in the initial interview. We don't know that Todd Smith has any knowledge of their relationship. And as a matter of fact, in his statement, he swore that they had gone through some relationship problems in the past and that they would never seek comfort outside the home.
Detectives learn more about Katrina's relationship with Guy Gabriel.
When our crime scene officers ended up diving into Katrina's phone, we confirmed that Guy Gabriel and Katrina were having a romantic relationship. They went out a couple times for lunch a few times and talked, and she shared problems with Guy. But then eventually that relationship became closer. And he had come to the point where their conversations had been about Katrina divorcing Todd Smith.
Investigators bring Guy Gabriel into the station for questioning.
He was irritated a bit that that we wanted a formal interview.
They ask him to recount the last time he saw Katrina.
Sunday night, which was the 21st, Guy Gabriel and Katrina had stayed together at Kelly's condo. On Monday morning, Guy Gabriel gets up, this is the morning of the 22nd, and he sees her off to work.
The next time Guy communicates with Katrina is when she returns to her home that night after work.
The last communication that we believe Katrina made to Guy Gabriel was at approximately 7:30 p.m. when she indicated she wanted to be at the condominium for Monday night football.
Katrina may have only texted Guy once that night, but he was texting her nonstop.
The night of October 22nd, he's on edge, waiting to hear from Katrina on whether or not she was gonna disclose to Todd that she wanted a divorce. That night, their text messages indicate that Guy was very concerned about, have you told him yet? How's things going? He wants her to tell Todd that the relationship's over with. Now that does send up red flags, because now you have somebody who is having a relationship with Katrina that appears to be very obsessed with her leaving her husband.
This can very quickly escalate to become a very dangerous, volatile situation. You introduce jealousy, you introduce resentment, and those can be powerful motivators for someone who lacks basic impulse control and who needs to be in control.
We don't know that she's ready at that point for sure to tell Todd that she wants things done with. Maybe she's changing her mind, maybe something else has happened. Did Guy Gabriel then get upset and something happened between the hours of 9 o'clock and the following morning? At this point, we don't know exactly where he's texting her from. Is he texting her from around the corner? Is he watching the house? Is it possible that after she leaves the home, as Todd says, to go back and shop, that her and Guy Gabriel meet up? He is our primary focus. He is our primary suspect. Could this be the guy? We have to investigate him.
Detectives are zeroing in on a new person of interest in the disappearance of Katrina Smith, her secret boyfriend, Guy Gabriel.
So, did Guy Gabriel have any contact with her that night, either near the home, or did they meet up later that night, and then things went awry from there? That is a possibility.
They look into Guy's movements in the critical window during which Katrina went missing.
Guy Gabriel indicated that Sunday night he had stayed at the condominium with Katrina Smith. Katrina went to work that morning, and then that evening he left to go to work because he worked the graveyard shift.
Guy's shift began at 8 p.m., and he said he was at work until 8 a.m. the next morning.
There's always an opportunity to leave work, right? So we went to Cameron Industries.
Detectives checked video surveillance and the security logs at Guy Gabriel's workplace. They show that he was in the building the whole night.
We were able to pull all of the video footage of him being in and out, supervising other individuals who had interacted with him.
If Guy Gabriel would have left Cameron Industries that evening during work, we would have seen it on that video. So we were able to eliminate Guy Gabriel.
With Guy Gabriel now in the clear, the investigation hits a roadblock.
It's frustrating. I try to take a personal approach to every case I work, I really do. This case for me was about Katrina, and once you learn about Katrina and what a wonderful person she was and what a wonderful family she has, you want to do the best job you can for them. You want to solve this case, and you want to do it right.
Investigators look to the family for more information regarding Katrina's final movements.
Bruce was Katrina's stepfather. He basically raised Katrina with her mom, Vicki.
He was with us. He was so concerned about her.
Detectives ask Bruce if he knows of anyone who would want to harm Katrina.
He tells us that Katrina feels that she's being followed and stalked by somebody. She just didn't know by whom. Katrina was so concerned that she has a conversation with a Verizon employee talking about, is there any way somebody could bug or clone her phone because she feels like somebody's keeping track of her and following her. And then all of a sudden on the 19th, he gets this text from her asking about getting a gun for protection. So, the alarm bells are going off with him.
Talk of getting a gun just days before she goes missing suggests Katrina was looking to defend herself.
It is apparent that Katrina was in fear of something and that she felt that she was being followed or stalked by somebody.
Katrina knew that her life was in danger and in jeopardy.
As detectives work to uncover the identity of who could be stalking Katrina, something unusual catches their eye.
Every day, people are searching for Katrina. They are searching for evidence. Todd is at the search party scenes, but does not appear to be engaged. Todd is conducting interviews with the local media. There's crying with no tears.
It's been horrible. I just wanted to come home.
It's just like his emotions weren't genuine. His crocodile tears, his sadness and everything.
There's emotion without emotion. And we are seeing this play out before the cameras.
For good investigators, gut instincts are honed. This is where investigators need to pay particular attention to the nuances, the micro expressions, as we call them, of potential persons of interest.
I'm a detective that watches behavior. Todd's behavior was very inconsistent with somebody that was suffering from a missing wife, a missing loved one.
Based on his suspicious behavior, detectives take another look at Todd, now as a potential suspect.
Todd had told us the marriage was excellent. He maintained the whole time that they weren't going to get divorced.
But when detectives talk to Katrina's friends, they get a different story.
October 13th, she went out for a girls' night with her girlfriends. During that night, she told one of her girlfriends, Jill, that she was not happy in the marriage, and she had brought up the word divorce several times in the conversation. The night of the 22nd, Jill's husband made a phone call to Todd. Todd told him that Katrina was coming over to do laundry and that she wanted to talk to him. And Jill's husband said, well, that sounds good. Maybe that's good. Todd says, no, I think it's done. I think she's done with me.
This tips off detectives that Todd is aware his marriage is in trouble, which is not what he initially told police.
The whole time, Todd is telling us the marriage is great, no problems in the marriage, and everything's going well. But Katrina is relaying to her friends, her co-workers, that her marriage isn't good. So the statements that Todd gave us, we're able to pick apart several of those statements as untruths.
As detectives become more suspicious of Todd, the forensic results from Katrina's car finally come in. The discovery is shocking.
It was pretty much neon lights when the luminol was sprayed into the trunk of the vehicle. We were able to see the outline of a body that had been placed in the trunk of her vehicle.
How do you explain blood in a trunk? It was apparent that someone had been placed in that trunk. We believe that blood was Katrina's.
Detectives have found Katrina's blood in the trunk of her car. This new evidence is key, revealing more about the disappearance.
Katrina had bled out significantly. There was even blood on the bumper of the vehicle, so we know that when she was placed in the vehicle, she was most likely substantially incapacitated.
Sometimes you have some, even without a body, evidence of a crime. You have some blood spatter. You have what's called exsanguination, which is blood volume, which in terms of no-body homicides is as close to a smoking gun as you can get.
Now we know we have a crime scene at the car, whether it happened there or somewhere else, and the car was just used as transportation to hide, eliminate the body.
With suspicion now building around Katrina's husband, Todd, investigators dig into his background.
We know that Todd Smith had a business where he was a financial advisor, and this was his own business. It was not as productive and successful as he had portrayed it to be. He was facing a fraud lawsuit in federal court. Katrina was actually the breadwinner in the family. She was the one that paid for the mortgage on the home, that paid all of the bills.
Todd's potential motive starts to become crystal clear.
We also learned that Todd was very possessive and jealous of Katrina, and the fact that she might now want to move on and get a divorce was very disturbing to Todd.
As detectives look deeper into Todd's past, they learn something even more alarming.
In the investigation, I ended up speaking with a family member of Todd Smith's, and his name was Justin. Justin was a half-brother to Todd. The story was that at 17 years old, Todd ended up disconnecting a gas line from the stove and ended up blowing up the home in an attempt to kill Justin, his sister, the mom, and the dad.
At the time, Todd was sentenced to 30 months probation, and he became permanently estranged from his family.
It paints a picture of someone who appears to be a meek and mild individual, but underneath there's a seething pot of anger and jealousy that erupts in a violent manner that could end in someone's death.
When we learn more about Todd's past, that he's this troubled, violent, fire-starting teenager, this Jekyll and Hyde character emerged that then casts, I think, further doubt on all of his stories.
As detectives uncover Todd's criminal past, they get a phone call that turns the case on its head.
Todd is upset. Todd is very upset. And he discusses how upset he is about Katrina's blood being found in the trunk of the vehicle.
For detectives, this is a red flag. No one in the sheriff's department has released the information about Katrina's blood being found in the car.
He tells us one of Katrina's family members told him about it. So we're talking to the family members. None of them knew anything about it. So how did Todd know about blood in the trunk?
Only the killer would know that there would be blood in the trunk. That had not been released to the public. It had not been disclosed to the family members.
Now believing Todd likely murdered Katrina, investigators search for physical evidence to tie him to the crime.
We searched the computers and we were able to find remnants of this disparaging flyer that had been distributed at Katrina's workplace before she went missing.
Now, how does that flyer, outlining a relationship, very rudely might I ask, between Guy and Katrina, how does that flyer end up on his computer? Did Katrina put it there? No. Who's the only other person that could have authored that on his laptop? Him?
The individual distributing the flyers in disguise, in fact, ended up being Todd.
Todd did everything he could to try to erase everything, but he doesn't realize that a computer keeps secrets, even when you try to delete them.
Todd passing out these types of flyers and trying to degrade, humiliate Katrina is horrible enough in itself. This, in my mind, has violent motivation as well.
When investigators comb through Todd's computer, it yields even more clues.
We also discover a tracking software, which coincides with a small box that one of our detectives located and right away identified it as some kind of housing for a tracker.
Before she disappeared, Katrina believed she was being followed, and she was right. Todd had been tracking her every move.
That tracking software that was on the computer was forensically analyzed by one of our detectives. He was able to show that the night Katrina disappeared, the night of October 22nd, that tracker was taken from the car, then seen following a path through the woods, which coincides with the resident who has the videotape of that figure going across that gentleman's front yard. It then concludes its tracking just a very short distance from the Smith home.
What we believe Todd did was after he had dumped her car, he removed the tracking device but he thought it was off, and it was not.
This is that huge piece of the puzzle. This is bigger than just one piece. This is a whole huge corner of that puzzle.
Katrina's husband, Todd, has become the prime suspect in her murder. Detectives bring him in for questioning and confront him about what they've discovered.
I confront him with the flyers. I confront him with the marriage. I confront him with the track stick. I confront him with everything. His response was to ignore those confrontations. He didn't say a word. He didn't respond to my accusations. If you were being accused of murder and didn't do it, wouldn't you come back at me? He didn't do that. He just sat there. And then at the very end, he said, "Didn't do it? I want a lawyer." And then he pointed up at the camera and said, "I want a lawyer." And he was screaming. He was so upset.
Detectives have linked Todd Smith to his wife's murder, but they still don't arrest him.
They have nearly all the circumstantial evidence they need, but they hold out and stay focused, looking for that final piece to close the circle. Good evidence often can mean the difference between making an arrest and someone being acquitted at trial, and making an arrest and making sure that person never gets out.
Then on November 9th, 3 weeks after Katrina Smith went missing, investigators get the break they've been looking for.
An off-duty firefighter noticed what appeared to be something in the water that shouldn't be there.
Unfortunately, through that investigation and through that autopsy, we were able to determine it was Katrina Smith.
Individuals always think that when they toss a body in the river that they get rid of evidence, but they really do not. I knew eventually Katrina would surface and her body would be able to tell me how she died and how she spent the last minutes of her life.
Katrina's body is badly decomposed, but the coroner declares the cause of death as blunt force trauma to the head.
She was probably most likely struck from behind, and defensive wounds on her forearms would have indicated an attempt to protect herself.
The type of weapon that would cause those types of injuries is some kind of cylindrical object.
We were able to determine from the evidence that that cylindrical object was more than likely a pipe or a bat.
This was a brutal attack on Katrina Smith. The attack showed that the individual who attacked her was very aggressive, was very emotional, and was going to make sure that she did not survive the attack.
Detectives search the Smith home, looking for the murder weapon.
The bat was found during the execution of one of the search warrants in the garage in a corner. The testing of the bat showed that there was presence of human blood in different areas of the bat. It ended up being Katrina's blood.
Luminol is sprayed throughout the garage where the murder weapon was found.
Crime scene saw what they believed was evidence that a large amount of blood had been cleaned up from the area. We could see that the place that she was killed was in the garage.
They finally have the physical evidence proving Todd killed his wife.
We believe that Todd took his marriage vows literally, till death do us part. And his motive in killing Katrina was to maintain her as his wife forever.
Investigators are now able to complete the picture of what they believe happened to Katrina Smith in the final 24 hours of her life.
October 22nd, she went to work at approximately 8 a.m. She got off work at approximately 5:30 p.m.
She got to the family residence at about 6 p.m., where she started her laundry for her job interview the following morning at 7:30.
That night, Katrina tells Todd she wants a divorce.
Todd is pressuring her to stay in the marriage and not to seek a divorce.
Investigators determined that Guy Gabriel was trying to help Katrina.
We believe that she is looking for someone to support her in her decision to end the marriage. Guy is providing her that support through their text messages that night.
We believe what happened next is when she got ready to leave the home and go back to the condo, Todd was very upset.
We believe that when she is leaving the home, Todd struck Katrina to the back of the head with a bat. She then attempts to protect her head by putting up her arms, which shows linear marks that fit the shape of the bat, as he continued to beat her repeatedly. He then dragged her to the back of her vehicle and placed her in the fetal position in the trunk of that car, where she died. We believe that Todd drove Katrina's body to the bridge shortly after 11. He dumped Katrina's body into the river.
He then proceeded to drive the car to Ventura and Obispo, where he ditched the car. Then at 11:24, we have a text from Todd to Katrina's phone that says, "Sweet dreams, good night."
But Todd sent that text to his wife after he killed her.
The last text message he sent to her was a signal of, you know what, you will forever be my wife. You will die my wife.
Todd Smith is your classic sociopath in that he has these malignant impulse control issues. The sociopath can pretend to conform now and again, but whether it's provocation or just something they see as belonging to them, they will take it and they will use whatever force they have to.
On November 21st, 2012, Todd Smith is charged with first-degree murder.
The timeline basically put this case together and tied it in a bow. It was rock solid. We were able to pinpoint his movements. We were able to pinpoint Katrina's movements, and when she went off the grid, we knew that in order for her to be off the grid, she was most likely dead.
After a 2-week trial, the jury finds Todd Smith guilty. He's sentenced to 59 years in prison.
The murder of Katrina Smith was just a brutal, heinous crime. She was a beautiful young woman who wanted to live her life. She just wanted to live it without Todd. And instead of allowing her to do that, he decided to take her life. Todd believed that he could commit the perfect murder, and I think his downfall was the arrogance that he could get away with that.
She wasn't wrong. Her instincts were right there. She was being stalked. She just didn't know by whom. It was her own husband stalking her for years.
4 years after Katrina Smith is murdered, the case is closed.
I think about her all the time. I have pictures of her during her beautiful life that her family has shared with me, and I keep those pictures close at hand as a reminder of why we do what we do, more importantly, why I do what I do.
With every police officer, with every detective, with everybody in law enforcement, there are those cases that attach themselves to your soul, to your heart. Katrina and her family, they have permanently attached themselves to my heart.